Chapter 250. Looking at the silent Shi Tai, Yen Zhaoga himself fell into silence, sighing soundlessly. The two had communicated via sound transmission, with it being hard for others to know of their contents. Standing behind Yen Zhaoga, Feng Yunsheng did not quite understand what was going on. Her eldest apprentice uncle, Shi Tai, who had always been like a mountain, seemingly able to prop up the heavens, was now in a rare state of depression. Even she could see it. It was as though a towering mountain had been dyed in a layer of twilight by the setting sun. However, very quickly, Shi Tai's closed eyes opened once more. As he opened his eyes, it was as though a sleeping lion had awoken, his earlier depression completely disappearing. What appeared before them was still that mighty, unyielding Iron Lion King. Seeing this scene, Feng Yunsheng even thought that what she had just seen had all been an illusion. Gazing at the Wang family ancestral ground in the distance, Shi Tai said calmly, "Don't let the devilish domain Grand Formation establish directly destroy it. I'll do a sudden attack. You guys just need to surround and clear it from the surroundings. Leave some people to guard the outskirts. Raise your vigilance and prepare for any unexpected situations." His voice was not all that loud, also not spreading far away, but it was clearly heard by all the nearby Broad Creed mountain martial practitioners. From that deep, heavy voice, they could feel a firm will. Yen Zhaoga and the others loudly agreed, saying thus, Shi Tai's figure rose from the top of the barren mountain. From within his body, a clear, bright radiance was emitted, his entire body seeming to have transformed into a divinity forged from Vajra. The next moment, Shi Tai strode forward, the heavens and the earth emitting great light as the expansion of the black devilish chi was instantly obstructed. Accompanied by Shi Tai's stride, his foot landing on the ground, he had already arrived in the air above the Wang family ancestral ground. Sturdy and condensed, pressuring down with an extremely vigorous force, the Wang family ancestral ground instantly lit up with numerous spirit patterns. A massive defensive formation was formed in midair, attempting to resist the pressure brought about by Shi Tai. However, it was like porcelain meeting a hard rock. Virtually without the slightest delay, the grand formation began mightily shattering. Shi Tai's body did not move quickly, but he descended resolutely as though there was nothing that could obstruct his footsteps. At the very least, the grand formation of the Wang family's ancestral land would not be able to withstand it, no matter what kind of power it was. As long as their nest was carefully managed and laid out for generations, it would be extremely powerful, forming a home field advantage that belonged to them. The experts of the Wang family, relying on the grand formation of their ancestral ground that they had operated for many years, would be able to resist even if Broad Creed Mountain's first seat elder of the Sand region arrived. Even though it would still be breached, it wouldn't be to the extent where it would be completely defenseless. Unfortunately, a grand formation that could obstruct the early Essence Talisman, first seat elder of the Sand region, was no different from paper in front of the late Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster Shi Tai. At this moment, a sinister voice came from within the surging black mist. "Iron Lion!" Countless spirit glyphs flashing with black light rose from the Wang family's ancestral grounds. Then, they quickly formed a mysterious glyph formation in the sky that exuded a terrifying aura. One talisman array after another. In an instant, they formed a tower that looked like an altar. In the altar, a figure could be vaguely seen holding a black spear and thrusting it towards Shi Tai. Shockingly, he was also a late Essence Talisman cultivator, a peak martial grandmaster expert who had already established the Essence Talisman Heavenly Altar. Shi Tai's face was expressionless, resembling a tough, unchanging rock. "Scaly Dragon King Sima Chue, you've joined the 9 underworlds as well?" the other party stabbed out with the black spear, resembling a scaly dragon soaring into the heavens as it emitted a deafening roar, black light flickering. It was as though a black wound had been slashed between the heavens and the earth. Sure Tai's expression did not change in the slightest, his body also being enveloped by an altar that was clear as glass and exuded an aura of indestructibility. A ferocious punch smashed downwards, directly forcibly clashing with the tip of his opponent's spear. As the two sides collided intensely, Yan Zhaoga and the others who were spectating from afar, not nearing, all felt the heavens and earth that they stood in tremble. A strange light shone in Feng Yunxing's eyes. I've heard of the reputation of the scaly dragon king Sima Chue before. He is one of the peak experts amongst solitary practitioners. At the 9th level of the martial grandmaster realm, a late essence talisman martial grandmaster. He is also one of the rare few essence talisman solitary practitioners who possesses a high-grade spirit artifact. That black spear is his high-grade spirit artifact. Eldest apprentice uncle actually forcibly clashed with an expert of the same cultivation level barehandedly, wielding the attack of a high-grade spirit artifact. The higher one's cultivation base, not only were there fewer instances of surpassing levels to defeat an opponent, the gap in strength between martial practitioners of the same cultivation level would also generally be smaller. Of those who were able to walk to such a high level, how many of them were simple? In a battle between essence talisman martial grandmaster experts of the same cultivation level, the addition of a high-grade spirit artifact would often be sufficient to decide the outcome of the battle. Yan Zhaoga laughed. Otherwise, why would he be called the Iron Lion King? Attack and defense as one. Sure Tai gazed coldly at his opponent. The belt at his waist lit up with radiance. His high-grade spirit artifact, the profound light divine armor, was activated, instantly transforming into an armor of black light, enveloping Sure Tai's body. The power of the spirit artifact merged with Sure Tai's martial will, causing his strength to instantly skyrocket. As he punched downwards, he directly sent the scaly dragon king Sima Chue into retreat. After that punch, Sure Tai did not rush to pursue him, instead stomping heavily downwards. With a mighty boom, the Wang family ancestral ground's defensive grand formation completely collapsed. Sima Chue's expression was dark as his spear changed, transforming into numerous streaks of black light that circulated between the heavens and the earth. He no longer clashed head-on with Sure Tai, instead adopting a roaming combat style. While Sima Chue was not Sure Tai's match, at least he did not allow Sure Tai to continue approaching the Wang family ancestral ground down below. The oasis where the Wang family ancestral ground was located was enveloped by black fog. Once more, streaks of red lightning lighting up amidst the black fog. In the depths of the black fog, a massive spirit formation could vaguely be seen. Yan Zhaoga could once again feel the terrifying aura of the Great Nine Underworld's door preparing to descend back then at clear concealed lake. Let's go. Saying thus, Yan Zhaoga shot forward like lightning towards the Wang family ancestral ground, Feng Yunsheng and Pan Pan following closely behind him. From all directions, broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners appeared, led by martial grandmaster experts, surrounding the Wang family ancestral ground together. Yan Zhaoga expanded his immortal crane wings, his speed swift as he very quickly arrived at the outskirts of the Wang family ancestral ground. The defensive grand formation of the Wang family ancestral ground had already been destroyed by Sure Tai. Facing the broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners, the people within could only defend against them in close combat. As Yan Zhaoga and the others neared, countless dark streaks of light instantly surged over from within the black fog, resembling a torrential storm. They all displayed various methods, defending against them. Yan Zhaoga's footsteps did not cease at all, the wings on his shoulders unfurling, their tips aimed forward, numerous crane feathers resembling a downpour of light shooting directly towards the enemy. The faint golden feathers of light and that dark, dark light clashed unceasingly within the air. The numerous feathers of light shattered, transforming into streaks of light as they dissipated, the numerous iron arrows of dark light distorting and deforming, resembling rain as they fell to the ground. The few that escaped the net, the lofty mountain armor lit up, directly resisting them head-on. Yan Zhaoge strode forward, coming to the outskirts of the Wang family ancestral ground. With a kick, the walls of the manor collapsed mightily, a large hole appearing. To be continued. Chapter 251. Yan Zhaoge kicked out a hole in the outer wall of the Wang family ancestral manor. Amidst the flying dust, a saber light suddenly flickered, chopping towards Yan Zhaoge. The saber light resembled a mountain, seeming as precipitous as a wondrous peak, also resembling a continuous chain of mountain ranges. Numerous layers of saber light instantly surrounded Yan Zhaoge. Not even looking, Yan Zhaoge punched out, passing through the saber light and directly sending his opponent flying backwards. As one person flew out, the saber light before him instead grew even more intense, with even more enemies executing the Wang family's ancestral mountain-linking saber art, obscuring the heavens and covering the earth as they shot towards Yan Zhaoge. At the same time, amidst this saber light that resembled a lofty mountain, a dark, piercingly cold wind was mixed within as it also assaulted towards Yan Zhaoge. Black Nightmare Mountain's direct lineage ultimate technique, wind chasing sword style. The sword's name was Chasing Wind, faster than the wind, one of the few swift swords under the heavens, comparable to the heavenly Thunder Hall's direct lineage lightning character 72 swords. A wisp of faint sword light arrived, first despite being launched later. Under the cover of the saber light, it was impossible to guard against it. Yan Zhaoge extended a hand, his index finger and thumb coming together as he pinched the tip of his opponent's sword. In an instant, the sword light was extinguished, the sword wind halted. The sword that was pinched by Yan Zhaoge's two fingers was unable to move at all. At the same time, Yan Zhaoge's entire body surged with aura chi. Standing unmoving where he was, his vigorous aura chi transformed into a storm, scattering the saber light that obscured the heavens and covered the earth. The Black Nightmare mountain martial practitioner before him reacted extremely quickly as he immediately let go of his sword as it was caught by Yan Zhaoge. But regardless of whether he changed his attack or immediately retreated before he could make his next move, he was shocked to find that the hilt of the longsword was heading back towards him, its original owner. With a chi sound, the sword hilt that had no edge seemed to be as sharp as the edge of a sword. It broke through this Black Nightmare mountain martial practitioner's protective stellar energy and pierced straight into his chest. The surrounding people looked at Yan Zhaoge in shock as he pinched the tip of his sword with two fingers before nimbly sending it forward. Using the sword hilt as the blade, he stabbed that Black Nightmare mountain martial artist to death. Yan Zhaoge's expression was as per usual as he retracted his arm, the hilt of his sword emerging from his opponent's chest. Not changing his hand, Yan Zhaoge just pinched the tip of the sword with two fingers. It was as if he wanted to commit suicide. Using the hilt as the edge of the sword, he casually swung it, but it was already better than most of the swords of the grandmasters in the world. He killed all the martial artists surrounding him. A portion of the perimeter wall was broken through. Yan Zhaoge entered the courtyard, instantly slaying many people as he cleared out the surrounding area. Other than him, there was no one else alive. Yan Zhaoge's gaze did not change in the slightest. He abruptly threw the sword in his hand to the side, and it instantly turned into a lightning-like sword light. In the black fog, a martial artist was trying to use the darkness to hide his figure and quietly approach, but he was directly nailed to the ground by this sword. The other side's martial scholar expert was also rapidly approaching, preparing to seal off the opening created by Yan Zhaoge, directly slapping a late Xiantian martial scholar to death. With a single palm, Yan Zhaoge shook his head. "If you're not a martial grandmaster, don't come to die." As he spoke, he turned around and raised his palm, blocking the incoming fist of a person. This person had a long, horse-like face. His entire body's aura chi surged, and like Yan Zhaoge's, a spiritual light shot straight into the horizon above his head. It was not illusory. Instead, it was real radiance. Shockingly, he was also a peak martial scholar expert who had stepped into the heavenly connection stage. The newcomer didn't look very old, only being in his early 30s. His aura chi transformed into numerous black winds, clearly being of Black Nightmare Mountain's direct lineage. His eyes were yellow, emitting a blood-red light. He had already fallen to the dark side, his eyes staring fixedly at Yan Zhaoge, filled with hatred and unwillingness. Those who come from Broad Creed Mountain all deserve to die. This horse-faced man roared loudly, his entire body's aura chi surging madly, condensing into an illusory heaven and earth, the heavens and earth filled with black hurricanes. The terrifying black hurricanes compressed and condensed unceasingly, finally transforming into numerous seemingly material black spears, their tips pointed straight at Yan Zhaoge. However, as the acupoints of Yan Zhaoge's entire body pulsed, streams of clear chi emanated, majestic as the heavens. As the opponent's black hurricanes that resembled long spears fell within, they directly disappeared. At the same time, grabbing his opponent's fist, Yan Zhaoge abruptly exhaled a terrifying aura chi from his palm. That horse-faced man could only feel numerous streams of aura chi that resembled fire dragons instantly flowing through the meridians of his arm, causing a painful feeling of being sliced apart and incinerated. The numerous fire dragons rushed madly into his body's aura chi completely unable to withstand them. In that instant, the horse-faced man's internal organs were all incinerated, his flesh, blood, tendons, bones, internal organs, and meridians that had been tempered countless times by his aura chi beginning to explode one after another. The horse-faced man stood stiffly where he was, his head, face, arms, and other parts of his body revealed a strange red color. It was like a shrimp or crab being cooked thoroughly. Yan Zhaoge released his hand, the horse-faced man's body collapsing onto the ground like a pile of mud. At this age, having cultivated to the heavenly connection stage, even in a sacred ground, he would still be at the level of a core, direct disciple. Yan Zhaoge shook his head. With Black Nightmare Mountain's current dire state, it is really rare that they could still recruit such a genius disciple. Sadly, he has joined the 9 underworlds. Yan Zhaoge shot forward with the immortal crane wings at an extremely fast speed. Only now did Ahu and the others catch up. As soon as Ahu entered, his 5 fingers pierced through the top of an opponent's skull. In other areas of the manor, a group of Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners were also unceasingly breaking into the manor, killing their way into its depths. Broad Creed Mountain had long since been prepared for this operation, mobilizing their elite forces, their attacks hard for their opponents to withstand, let alone the martial practitioners of the Wang family. Even the other decimating Abyss martial practitioners, led by the remnants of Black Nightmare Mountain, would also be hard-pressed to stop Broad Creed Mountain's momentum. As opposed to the opponents before them, it was instead the aftershocks of the battle between Shirtai and Sima Chui up above that caused Yan Zhaoge, and the others to be more vigilant, lest they were swept away by the tail of the typhoon, dying mysteriously. However, on one hand, Shirtai held the upper hand, beating Sima Chui into constant retreat, hard-pressed to parry. Shirtai was able to control the changes in the battle situation, leaving some space for Yan Zhaoge and the others. Secondly, the demonic chi's aura was getting denser and denser. While it was dangerous, It also blocked the shockwaves from the battle between Shi and Tai. This allowed Yin Zhaoge and the others to feel at ease and boldness as they directly charged towards the core of the manor's devilish domain grand formation. Having experienced the previous battle at Clear Concealed Lake, Yin Zhaoge was now even more familiar with the devilish domain grand formation. Currently, the grand formation had still yet to be completely formed, the domain of devilish qi also yet to be established. While Yin Zhaoge and the others were affected, their movements were still smooth. There was only that terrifying aura that bewitched one's heart, gradually growing stronger, affecting one's mind. Yin Zhaoge felt as he charged forward, the killing intent within his heart seemed to be growing stronger unceasingly, as though there was a voice within his heart telling him to kill all living beings before him, no matter who they were. Ha! Yin Zhaoge's gaze sunk as he stabilized his mind once more. Raising his head and gazing over, he saw a familiar golden pagoda not far away, a red door of light currently projecting downwards from the top of the pagoda. Yin Zhaoge leapt, shooting towards the golden pagoda, spreading his arms wide, resembling a great rock spreading its wings, his sword aura slashing past, bringing along a few heads as they soared into the skies. To be continued. Chapter 252. In terms of cultivation base, Yin Zhaoge was not the highest amongst the broad creed mountain martial practitioners who had attacked the Wang family ancestral manor this time. However, in terms of understanding of the devilish domain grand formation before them, there was no one who could match him. Advancing, Yin Zhaoge was instead the fastest to approach the golden tower at the center of the devilish domain grand formation. On the golden tower, red light currently flickered, condensing to form a door of light projecting downwards. Lines of runes wrapped around the golden tower like black chains. The runes extended towards the devil qi in all directions. However, as Shurtai had said, not waiting for the devilish domain grand formation to completely form, they would destroy it. Yin Zhaoge and the others arrived extremely quickly. At this moment, the devilish domain grand formation had only just been established, yet to truly circulate. The golden tower, as well as the numerous spirit patterns entangled on it, also appeared illusory and ethereal, not completely condensed yet. Even that door of light, formed of red light, appeared extremely weak. While it was projecting downwards, it was only in its embryonic form. However, as time passed, that terrifying aura of the 9 underworlds that bewitched one's heart grew stronger and stronger. Yin Zhaoge rushed towards the tall tower. Feng Yunsheng, Hu, Pan Pan, and a portion of the other broad creed mountain martial practitioners following him. At this moment, Feng Yunsheng had already dismounted from Pan Pan's body. A black saber that did not emit light was grasped stably within her hands. As her saber rose and fell, a fallen practitioner had already fallen beneath her saber. In the distance, an opponent held a massive wheel in his hands, close to 2 meters in diameter. The edges of the wheel were all curved, sharp blades, resembling the teeth of a saw. The opponent roared loudly, his orochi shaking as he raised this wheel and threw it towards Feng Yunsheng and the others. As that wheel rotated, the sharp blades disappeared. Only golden light could be seen flickering at its edges, the wheel's diameter seemingly having suddenly expanded several times over. Even more ferocious and terrifying, the massive wheel spun over with a shocking momentum, wanting to hack Feng Yunsheng and the other 10-odd people into 2 in one go. The other broad creed mountain martial practitioners hurriedly evaded. A broad creed mountain martial practitioner with a higher cultivation base than Feng Yunsheng. He leaped into the air and accurately tapped the center of the wheel with the tip of his foot. His eyesight, judgment, and speed were all extremely exquisite. He successfully dodged the roulette and rushed toward the man who threw the roulette. evading the enemy and attacking the enemy was completed in a single move. People couldn't help but cheer when they saw it. Feng Yunsheng, on the other hand, seemed to be in a daze as she stood rooted to the spot. Just as someone was about to cry out in alarm, they saw Feng Yunsheng suddenly raise the black long saber in her hand. The next moment, the saber fell. A sharp and ear-piercing sound of friction rang out, and then the roulette suddenly split into two, brushing past both sides of Feng Yunsheng's body, flying far away, and then smashing onto the ground. After Feng Yunsheng swung her saber, she pushed off the ground lightly and soared into the air. Then it fell like a meteor. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of an opponent. The violent and sharp blade was like a hot knife through butter, chopping down from the top of the opponent's head, and then going all the way down, directly splitting the opponent vertically in half. Such a brazen momentum coming from the hands of a beautiful woman. The strong contrast caused everyone to raise their eyebrows. However, after Feng Yunsheng's blade fell and killed this enemy, she did not care in the slightest. It was as though she was used to it. She turned, not hesitating in the slightest, as she rushed towards another opponent. Pan Pan followed closely behind Feng Yunsheng, even though his current strength was actually greater than Feng Yunsheng's. However, seeing this scene, his two big eyes blinked as he unconsciously shrunk his fleshy neck. The others followed closely behind. Being able to keep up with his footsteps, Yan Zhaoge acted as a sharp blade, advancing unceasingly at the front, responsible for opening the path. As someone advanced, the immortal crane wings on Yan Zhaoge's shoulders instantly flipped, transforming into two wings, the crane feathers at the tips like blades as they shot out over a large area, riddling the enemies before him with thousands of holes. Gradually approaching the tall tower at the center of the devilish domain grand formation. This place was already gradually about to form an independent space, red light spreading everywhere, turning the surrounding area into a red independent world. Yan Zhaoge raised his head and looked at the numerous black spirit patterns that resembled chains above his head before leaping up. A short stone rod appeared within his hands, growing with the wind as it instantly transformed into a massive pillar of the divine palace. Yan Zhaoge brought the pillar of the divine palace above the intersecting spirit patterns, releasing his hand as the pillar of the divine palace smashed downwards. The numerous spirit patterns down below instantly broke apart one after another. As the spirit patterns broke apart, the originally already unstable golden tower was shaken as well, shaking. The red light between the heavens and the earth instantly vanished, even the devilish chi dissipating greatly. The power of the devilish domain grand formation suddenly weakened. The other broad creed mountain martial practitioners who were still fighting within the grand formation instantly sped up, killing over in a straight line. This was especially so in the direction of the essence spirit martial grandmasters, instantly killing their way to the core region of the grand formation like a hot knife through butter. Standing on the pillar of the divine palace, Yan Zhaoge smashed apart the numerous spirit patterns. Before the pillar had even landed on the ground, the sky above his head suddenly darkened, the light dimming. Raising his head, he saw an old man brandishing a saber in an attack towards him, the saber descending, resembling the collapse of an unending chain of mountains. His majestic true essence turned illusory into real, actually truly forming countless mountain rocks descending towards Yan Zhaoge with the momentum of mountains collapsing. An essence spirit martial grandmaster, the head of the Wang family. Yan Zhaoge's expression did not change as the light of thunder surged within his right eye, the fragment of the eye of the Thunder Emperor in the form of a purple orb appearing. A massive rumble resounded, the purplish-green light of thunder surging madly, shattering the mountain rocks before him. The Wang family patriarch was still about to attack when a strong wind resounded by his ear, a terrifying saber light that seemed like it wanted to break through space itself appeared, chopping towards him. Of Broad Creed Mountain's direct lineage, one of the 8 extreme arts, chaotic elements, uniting saber, an essence spirit, martial grandmaster of Broad Creed Mountain, had already arrived. Yen Zhaoge smiled slightly. This time, he had not come to the core of the Grand Formation alone. Reaching out to pick up the pillar of the Divine Palace, Yen Zhaoge changed his position, smashing apart a few more spirit patterns. The devilish domain Grand Formation weakened further, that golden tower beginning to look like it was on the verge of collapse, the red door of light also close to being destroyed. The Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners here were gaining the upper hand, victory already in sight. In the air above the Wang family ancestral ground, the scaly dragon king, Sima Chue, was forced to the point of not touching the ground, only barely able to drag things out. After smashing another spirit pattern, Yen Zhaoge stopped, leaping onto the top of the pillar of the Divine Palace, gazing at that tall golden tower. Standing by the side of the thick stone pillar, who raised his head and looked upwards. "Young master, what is it?" "Something's not right." Yen Zhaoge narrowed his eyes. It went too smoothly. Ahu scratched his head. Perhaps because Broad Creed Mountain no longer has any decimating abyss spies, the other side not knowing of our plans, thus being defeated in a single blow. Yen Zhaoge surveyed their surroundings. The decimating abyss martial practitioners here at the core of the Grand Formation are mostly of the Wang family, with no martial grandmasters of Black Nightmare Mountain to be seen. Black Nightmare Mountain's elites are actually only that Heavenly Connection martial grandmaster who died at my hands at the outskirts of the Grand Formation. Ahu was shocked. "There's an ambush wanting to surround us instead?" Yen Zhaoge shook his head. "Our clan has experts in charge of guarding the outskirts, with the first seat elder of the Sand region keeping a close eye on them. It won't be so easy to surround us instead." As he pondered, Yen Zhaoge's gaze fell on that tall golden tower once more. To be continued. Chapter 253. In this battle, the enemy experts are also few. Other than the scaly dragon king, Sima Chue, there are no other essence talisman martial grandmasters. Gazing at that golden tower, Yen Zhaoge fell into deep thought. Ahu grinned and said, "Even if there is an ambush, it won't be wrong to destroy this devilish domain formation first. We can't let the 9 serenities descend here, right? Furthermore, by destroying the demonic domain Great Formation, the enemy will also lose their geographical advantage." Yen Zhaoge did not answer as he surveyed his surroundings, looking at those intersecting spirit patterns as he began unceasingly deducing and analyzing them. After the incident of Clear, Concealed Lake, having learned his lesson, Yen Zhaoge grit his teeth and put in more effort in the Tao of formations. Although due to time constraints, it was impossible to have earth-shattering changes in a short period of time, there was still considerable progress. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal of this devilish domain Grand Formation is to allow the 9 underworlds to descend. It is a formation that can break through the boundaries of space and time. Yen Zhaoge pondered. Then, if they want to hide something, could it also be in the area of spatial distortions? Opening the door in reverse, sending us from the 8 extremities world into the 9 underworlds. It doesn't feel like. Yen Zhaoge unceasingly deduced the principles of the formation, countless thoughts flashing through his mind at lightning speed. While he and Ahu had stopped here, the other experts of Broad Creed Mountain did not cease their attacks. An essence spirit martial grandmaster chopped out with an 8 scenery spirit saber, his true essence transforming into 8 screens of light, enveloping the tall golden tower within. In the next moment, the 8 light screens shattered together. Even the golden pagoda, which was already on the verge of collapse, began to completely collapse. Yen Zhaoge carefully felt the collapse of the golden tower, as well as the changes in the devilish domain Grand Formation. Suddenly, Yen Zhaoga detected a problem. The devilish domain grand formation before him, compared to the one he had destroyed at Clear Concealed Lake, was much more powerful when it was in operation. There was no difference, it was exactly the same. But when the formation began to reverse and collapse, there was a slight difference. The golden tower was collapsing, and the red door of light was completely obliterated. The chain-like black runes broke one after another. The dense black demon chi in the air began to pour into the bodies of the fallen evils, causing them unbearable pain. Everything was so similar, as if the scene of the incident at Clear Concealed Lake had been replayed. There was only one difference. Accompanied by the collapse of the tall golden tower, Yen Zhaoga could vaguely feel it. The power of this infernal domain, grand array, seemed to be secretly being directed to other places. Yen Zhaoga abruptly raised his head, not bothering to speak any further as he leapt off the pillar of the divine palace. Next, he picked it up and shot swiftly towards the collapsing golden tower. Seeing Yen Zhaoga carrying the massive stone pillar as he rushed towards the golden tower, the other broad creed mountain martial practitioners were all slightly taken aback. The core of the formation is already about to be destroyed. Ah, what is he doing? Greedy for merit. But if we're talking about greed, there are so many of us watching. What's more, you took the lead in breaking through the formation and helped everyone break through. You should have a share in the credit. The Essence Spirit Martial Grandmaster closest to that golden tower also looked at Yen Zhaoga in shock, frowning slightly. No need to worry, Zhaoga. That saber of mine can guarantee the destruction of this golden tower. Not waiting for him to finish, Yen Zhaoga hurriedly cut him off. Elder Tsong, first protect this tower. Don't let it collapse. As his words left his mouth, everyone was rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied. Even the remaining decimating abyss martial practitioners and fallen evils present, they were all stunned on the spot, unable to recover as they looked at Yen Zhaoga. Never in his wildest dreams would Elder Tsong have thought that Yen Zhaoga would suddenly say something like this. He looked shockingly at Yen Zhaoga. What exactly? Halfway through his words, a wary look suddenly flashed through Elder Tsong's eyes. He appraised Yen Zhaoga with a scrutinizing gaze. He thought of a possibility. While he felt that this possibility was very absurd, however absurd it was, it could not compare to Yen Zhaoga's current actions, which were like two completely different people. Fallen to the dark side. The other broad creed mountain martial practitioners all looked rather hesitantly at Yen Zhaoga. If it was said that Yen Zhaoga had fallen to the dark side, they would also not believe it. First, not mentioning the incident at Clear Concealed Lake. The descent of the 9 underworlds had been stopped by Yen Zhaoga in the descent of the Wang ancestral ground this time. In breaking through the devilish domain grand formation, Yen Zhaoga had also played an important role. If one had to find a martial scholar of the 8 extremities world whom the decimating abyss and the 9 underworlds wanted to kill the most, if Yen Zhaoga claimed to be number 2, no one would dare claim to be number 1. For such a person to fall to the dark side, it was really hard to believe. However, Yen Zhaoga's current abnormal actions were really hard to understand. Could it be that in breaking through the formation earlier, he had been temporarily aroused by the devilish intent within his heart? The 9 underworlds specialized in digging holes in people's hearts. No one knew when they would suddenly fall for it, only able to remain vigilant at all times. The tall golden tower had already completely shattered, collapsing downwards as it was about to be reduced to rubble. Yen Zhaoga could not be bothered to explain as he leapt into the air, descending the pillar of the divine palace, forcibly suppressing the shattered golden tower. Luckily, his usual reputation and performance had left too deep an impression in everyone's hearts. While they were suspicious, they did not stop him in the end. Suppressing the collapsed golden tower, Yen Zhaoge's expression was still grave as he concentrated on analyzing the changes in the formation. Seeing that Yen Zhaoge was completely unable to spare any attention to speak, Ahu hurriedly said, "Elder Tsong, young master feels that our trip this time has gone too smoothly, and that the other side has probably set up a trap." Hearing his words, Elder Tsong nodded slightly. "Yes, I also feel this way. However, whether it is an ambush or something else, we can't just watch as the 9 underworlds descend. First, destroying the devilish domain grand formation would definitely not be wrong. No matter what the other side plans, their target is still the 9 underworlds' descent. And once the great 9 underworlds door opens, the consequences will undoubtedly be unimaginable. However bad the result, it can't be worse than this." The other Broad Creed Mountain martial grandmaster experts all nodded. Now, finally understanding the sudden changes in the formation, Yen Zhaoge said, "The 9 underworlds descending here is indeed an extremely bad result, but it is still not the worst." Elder Tsong and the others were slightly taken aback. Yen Zhaoge sucked in a deep breath, raising his head to look into the distance. "With the 9 underworlds descending here, at least we are prepared for battle, especially with eldest apprentice uncle here. Even if the door to the 9 underworlds truly opens, we can still fight to the death to obstruct the evil devils, buying time for the clan's other experts to arrive and for the nearby civilians to evacuate. However, what if another gate is suddenly opened in another place that we are not prepared for without any sign, leading to the arrival of the 9 serenities?" All the Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners present were shocked, be it Clear, Concealed Lake, or the Wong family's ancestral ground. The reason why they could obstruct the descent of the 9 underworlds was because the formation of the devilish domain grand formation and the opening of the 9 underworlds door required a certain amount of time. At the same time, setting up a great formation required time and treasures. It was not impossible to find it. It was possible that it would be detected before the formation was properly set up. This gave the martial practitioners of the 8 extremities world a chance to wreak havoc. But what if a door to the 9 underworlds was instantly opened at a certain place without any signs and without any process? Just the thought of it sent chills down everyone's spine. To be continued. Chapter 254. Yen Zhaoge's words caused a chill to run down the backs of all the Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners present. That Broad Creed Mountain martial grandmaster who was clashing with the head of the Wong family stared at his opponent, asking in a loud voice, "Is it really so?" The head of the Wong family was a little confused, but when he came back to his senses, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes. They had all been used, becoming bait and cannon fodder to draw Broad Creed Mountain over. However, the old man quickly reined in his emotions and still had a blank look on his face. He snorted in exasperation. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Although his reactions were also fast, the slight changes in his gaze were all seen by the Broad Creed Mountain martial grandmaster, who was currently attentively observing him. This Broad Creed Mountain elder's heart instantly grew cold. After repelling his opponent with a single saber strike, he turned and shook his head towards Elder Tsong and the others. "I'm afraid it's true." Elder Tsong and the others sucked in a breath of cold air as they looked at the shattered golden tower. Yen Zhaoge had already leapt down from the pillar of the divine palace, standing on the ruins of the collapsed golden tower. He extended his palm, pressing it against the golden tower as he carefully analyzed the changes in the flow of devilish qi within. After a while, Yen Zhaoge said with a rather solemn expression on his face, "It's a little too late. The grand formation's reversal has already begun, a great amount of devilish qi being sent into the distance. What I am doing now is only temporarily delaying this process." Elder Tsong's expression turned gloomy. He wished he could slap himself. In the distance, another Broad Creed Mountain martial grandmaster shouted in a low tone, senior apprentice brother, Sung, stabilize your mind. Regret is also an obsession and can easily be exploited by devils. Saying thus, he looked at Yen Zhaoge. Can you confirm where the newly opened Great Nine Underworld's door will be? Yen Zhaoge closed his eyes, opening them after a while as he said in a heavy tone, South Heaven region. All the broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners felt even more bitter within their hearts. The South Heaven region was directly opposite the Fire Domain's Sacred Sun clan. Instead, there were many elite broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners stationed there. Other than the Central Heaven region, where Broad Creed Mountain was located, of the first seat elders of the South, North, West, East, Sand region, and Gan region, the first seat elder of the South region was the strongest. However, it was also precisely in order to guard against the Sacred Sun clan standing against them. Therefore, the experts of Broad Creed Mountain, the South Heaven region's first seat elder included, were all stationed at the border of the South Heaven region, where it intersected with the Fire Domain. Broad Creed Mountain's arrangements in the South Heaven region were towards the south and not the north, with the north precisely being the Central Heaven region. This resulted in the Southern Heaven continent, except for the southern border. The defense of the inner regions was very weak. If a spatial rift suddenly opened in the central region of the South Heaven region, the descent of the 9 underworlds would definitely result in massive destruction, and it would be very hard for Broad Creed Mountain's lineage to react in time, especially when they still had to consider what the Sacred Sun clan would do. Time was tight to send reinforcements from Central Heaven State, and it was hard to make it in time. Harboring a final hope, someone asked Yen Zhaoge, if the other party had made such arrangements, why would they have waited for us to fall into their trap? They couldn't have taken the initiative to destroy the devilish formation core here. To achieve the goal of changing the location of the Demon Gate's opening? I also hope that I'm wrong, but sadly, that's not the case. Yen Zhaoge shook his head. Whether it is fallen practitioners or those with devilish intent, they are all unable to destroy the core of the devilish domain grand formation. Therefore, they can only set up a deceptive formation, borrowing our hands to help them complete their plan. Yen Zhaoge laughed. At this critical moment, it is indeed the one and only method that can accurately determine whether or not a person harbors devilish intent. It works every time. At this time, Yen Zhaoge could still talk and laugh casually. Everyone here, regardless of their cultivation base, admired his temperament and bearing. It was just that most people were unable to laugh like Yen Zhaoge. Elder Tsong shook his head forcefully, forcing himself to calm down. He chopped down an enemy with an 8 sceneries spirit saber. Immediately inform Elder Shur, as well as our clan and the South Heaven region. We will purge the remaining decimating abyss martial practitioners here. Seeing this, the Wong family head finally laughed madly. Even if I die here, being able to see your Broad Creed Mountain in such a sorry state, this old man can already be considered not to have died in vain. Ha 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 ha. The faces of Elder Tsong and the others were all very ugly. The other party had dug a huge pit for them, but they had no choice but to jump into it, destroying the devilish domain grand formation here, preventing the descent of the 9 underworlds in Yunwu County, would instead cause another Great 9 underworld's door to instantly open elsewhere. If they did not destroy the devilish domain grand formation here, could it be that they would just sit and watch as the 9 underworlds descended before their very eyes? While the former was more dangerous, the latter was indisputably not a good result either. After working so hard for so long, having to choose between the worst and the worst, no one would be in a good mood. Ahu looked at Yen Zhaoge with a bitter expression on his face. Young master! Still pressing his palm on that golden wreckage, Yen Zhaoge muttered, the decimating abyss has an expert, making such intricate improvements to the devilish domain grand formation that opens the Great 9 underworld's door, within such a short period of time. I just don't know if it can accurately pinpoint the exact location where the Great Nine Underworld's door will reopen. It would be fine if it opened randomly, but if it can pinpoint the exact location, that would really be hard to come by. Yan Zhaoge's mind sunk into the devilish formation, the scenes before him turning illusory as an ear-piercing howl that resembled the mournful wailing of the deep abyss resounded by his ears. Finally, the scene before him was that of a plain in the South Heaven region. On the flat ground, there were farmlands everywhere, even a number of large cities densely populated. A large river flowed past, nourishing the farmlands on both sides, creating a scene of bountiful fertility. Seeing this scene, Yan Zhaoge was speechless. He could virtually see what would happen after the descent of the 9 underworlds, this place transforming into hell on earth. Within the air, the black devilish qi suddenly dissipated, a figure descending from the heavens, resembling a descending divinity, light illuminating the great earth. It was precisely the Iron Lion King, Shi Tai, having originally already held the absolute advantage, almost about to slay Sima Chue. After hearing the news from his fellow disciple, he had no choice but to let go of his opponent this time, first rushing over to where Yan Zhaoge and the others were. I've already tried to inform the clan and the South Heaven region as quickly as possible. Shi Tai asked, "Roughly how much time do we have?" Yan Zhaoge answered, "Roughly the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." Shi Tai silently calculated. Even if Master hurries over with the help of the clear qi robe, he might not make it in time. The others all shut their eyes painfully. If even the combination of Broad Creed Mountain's #1 expert and the clear qi robe could not make it in time, then Broad Creed Mountain would really have no way at all. Here, they could only be anxious, unable to do anything at all. This feeling was just as unbearable as closing their eyes and waiting for death. Of everyone here, only Yan Zhaoge stared fixedly at the ruins of the Golden Tower before him, his gaze flickering unceasingly as he seemed to be thinking about something. Looking at Yan Zhaoge, Shi Tai asked in a heavy tone, "Do you have a way?" After pondering for a moment, Yan Zhaoge met Shi Tai's gaze. "There is a certain degree of risk, and I will need eldest apprentice uncle's help." Everyone's spirits rose greatly, Shi Tai's expression not changing. "No need to hold back, just speak your mind." Chapter 2:55. For a time, everyone's gazes fell on Yan Zhaoge. His expression calm, Yan Zhaoge said earnestly, "I want to re-establish the devilish domain grand formation here." As these words left his mouth, Yan Zhaoge saw everyone exchanging looks. Shi Tai's eyes also revealed a hint of surprise, but he quickly calmed down and asked, "You just said there's a risk. What do you mean by risk? What do you need my help for?" Yan Zhaoge speedily answered, "Rebuilding the devilish domain grand formation here, using it to guide the devilish qi that was previously sent to the South Heaven region back here." Hearing his words, Shi Tai did not interrupt as he looked quietly at Yan Zhaoge, waiting for him to continue. "In that case, first solve the crisis in the Southern Heaven continent, and then deal with the one in front of us." Yan Zhaoge continued, "I will be controlling it. At the same time, I will need an expert on the level of eldest apprentice uncle to make a move, using your fist intent to reseal the Great 9 Underworld's door that has been opened here. The risk lies in the fact that we cannot destroy the core of the demonic domain Great Formation in advance. The door of the 9 Underworlds will truly open for an instant. If we do not seal it in time, there is a possibility that the 9 Underworlds will truly descend." Yan Zhaoge said, "That way, it would be equivalent to us choosing the former between the worst and the worst. We would have to fight a bloody battle here to block the 9 Underworld's evil devils who have invaded the 8 Extremities world, buying time for the other experts of our clan to arrive and reinforce us." Shi Tai glanced deeply at Yen Zhaoge. "The key does not lie with me. Any late essence, talisman, martial grandmaster would be able to do it. The key lies with you." Yen Zhaoge nodded, saying quietly, 70% certainty. 70%. Sure, Tai repeated, and said, "If it's really 70%, then that's enough. Let's go." Yen Zhaoge looked at the people beside him. "Elders, please arrange according to my instructions. We will rebuild the formation as soon as possible. Time is very tight." The group of Broad Creed Mountain martial grandmasters exchanged glances, looking first at Yen Zhaoge, then at Sure Tai, before agreeing emotionally. Although they had doubts and worries in their hearts, however, time was of the essence, and no one dared to hesitate. If there was even a slight delay, the 9 underworlds would descend on the unguarded southern heaven region's fertile land. Very quickly, accompanied by Yen Zhaoge's low roar, "Rise!" Numerous black spirit patterns instantly surfaced on the great earth. Countless runes circulated. The black light soared into the sky and turned into clouds of black mist that covered the sky. Blood-red lightning kept striking down from the black mist. The black formation patterns flickered with a gloomy brilliance, giving off an extremely filthy feeling. A terrifying aura emerged once again. It did not give off an evil feeling, but it caused one's mind to waver, making it difficult for them to stabilize their minds. The strange power seemed to be inciting the deepest desires, evil thoughts, and obsessions in the hearts of everyone present. He continued to magnify it. In the center of the black light array, a golden tower rose from the ground. As the golden light surged, it seemed to have a life of its own as it continued to grow. Under the guidance of the radiance, black runes shuttled through the air like black chains, wrapping around the golden tower. Then, as if they were enduring a huge force, all the chains became taut. As straight as a ramrod, the top of the golden pagoda radiated a blood-red light, which gradually condensed into the shape of a door. This red door of light rippled like water. The light gradually projected onto the ground in front of the golden pagoda, reflecting another large door. Within the area enveloped by the devilish domain grand formation, the black mist instantly became denser and denser. Afterwards, it became viscous like mud. The devilish chi had already begun to form a terrifying devilish domain. It enveloped the surrounding area. Outside the devilish domain, the first seat elder of Broad Creed Mountain Sand Region and the other Broad Creed Mountain experts all looked worriedly at the terrifying devilish domain that enveloped the vast land. They had already received Sure Tai's notice and knew that the devilish domain grand formation was currently being rebuilt under their control. However, such an action that was akin to playing with fire still made everyone feel uneasy. However, in comparison, this was already a slightly better result. At least it was much better than the 9 underworlds directly descending on the defenseless South Heaven region. It was just that if Yen Zhaoge and Sure Tai failed, the 9 underworlds would descend on Yunwu County beneath their feet. At that time, everyone would have to be on the front lines, blocking the initial invasion of the evil devils. Previously, before they had broken through the devilish domain grand formation for the first time, upon learning that Yunwu's Wang family was about to cause trouble, the Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners had rushed over at the first possible moment. In order to guard against any unexpected situations, they had already begun arranging for the ordinary citizens and low-level martial practitioners of Yunwu County and the surrounding area to evacuate. Now, they would not be flustered, able to fight freely in Yunwu County. This was an important reason why the Sand region had to bear the risk and prevent the South Heaven region from being ambushed. The Sand region moved urgently, and the news was also transmitted to Broad Creed Mountain in the Central Heaven region as well as the South Heaven region at the fastest speed possible. The location of the Great Nine Underworld's door could change. The other North Heaven region and the other regions also had to be informed, just in case. The Sand region's first seat elder gazed into the distance at the devilish domain grand formation that had already completely engulfed the Wang family ancestral ground, muttering to himself, "Yin Xiaoge, you must succeed." Within the devilish domain grand formation in the core region, the black mist had disappeared. In its place was a strange space enveloped by a red light. Within this space, the golden tower stood erect, the reflection of the red door of light becoming clearer and clearer on the ground. The crevice between the two doors on the ground distorted and shook unceasingly, causing the ground to distort intensely as well. It was as though something was about to bore out from the ground, ripping a massive deep chasm in the ground. As this chasm split open, it was the path that led to the legendary 9 underworlds. The terrifying aura that bewitched one's heart surged to the extreme at this moment, causing one's mind to waver. Yin Xiaoge's expression was heavy as he stood beneath the golden tower, pressing his hands on its surface, at the same time swiveling his head and looking calmly at the Great 9 Underworld's door that was gradually about to truly open. Half succeeded, Yin Xiaoge said, "The devilish qi that leads to the South Heaven region has been drawn back." Hearing Yin Xiaoge's words, everyone also let out a sigh of relief. If the Great 9 Underworld's door opened here, while the South Heaven region was not affected, also opening a door to the 9 underworlds, then everyone's feelings would really not be something that could be described with depression and fury. Everyone's attention was focused on the Golden Tower. The Golden Tower suddenly shook. Yin Xiaoge's expression changed slightly. "Someone wants to interrupt my movements, dragging the devilish qi back." On that door of red light at the top of the Golden Tower, a strange image suddenly surfaced. Raising their heads, everyone suddenly let out a shocked cry. "Elder Lu!" Raising his head as high as he could, Yin Xiaoge saw a figure reflected on that door of red light. It was a white-haired old man. He also recognized the other party. It was, shockingly, a longtime elder of Broad Creed Mountain. That Elder Lu's expression was currently gloomy, also carrying hints of madness, as he held a black jade talisman within his hand, currently crazily infusing his fist-intent true essence within. Sure Tai's face was sunken as water, while Yin Xiaoge's gaze was cold. An illusory scene of red light also appeared before Elder Lu, from which he could clearly see Yin Xiaoge and the others. Slightly taken aback, knowing that his identity had already been exposed, he could not help but let out a strange laugh. "The good son of Yen Di, it's you again?" Chapter 256. Looking at Elder Lu, Yin Xiaoge smiled, but did not speak, focusing on controlling the devilish domain grand formation. Looking at Elder Lu, Sure Tai said slowly, after Senior Apprentice Uncle Wang, "Senior Apprentice Uncle Lu, is it the same for you?" Elder Lu snorted. "For someone like you who has already stepped into the late essence talisman stage before reaching middle age, how could you possibly understand us?" He said coldly, "Words are useless. Let's see who's the real deal." Yin Xiaoge nodded. "I very much agree with these words." As he said this, Yin Xiaoge's left hand remained pressed on the Golden Tower, his right hand drawing one rune after another in midair. As the runes landed on the Golden Tower, it instantly stabilized once more, the blood-red light at the top of the tower growing even stronger. The door projected on the ground grew clearer and more real, gradually condensing into a complete form. The great earth began to split apart. Beneath the split ground, it was not soil and stone, but a world of red light. The distorted space did not lead to the underground of the 8 extremities world, instead leading to the legendary 9 underworlds. The abnormal, bewitching aura reached an unprecedented peak at this moment, causing one to almost go mad. Within the environment of the red light, Elder Lu seemed to have suffered the backlash of the formation as an abnormal blood-red color first surfaced on his face before it turned completely pale. The black jade talisman in his hand shattered with a bang, the flying fragments of black jade hitting his body and face, actually piercing deeply into his flesh and blood, causing his entire face to blossom. Yan Zhaoge! Elder Lu howled like a wounded wild beast. The silhouette of the red door of light shook, Elder Lu's figure gradually disappearing. Inform the clan of this matter in time as well, Shi Tai said without even looking back. Elder Song beside him bowing in acknowledgement. Yan Zhaoge said, "Eldest apprentice uncle, it is still a fake door now. This is the final moment before it becomes real." Looking at the terrifying crevice on the ground, feeling the aura of the 9 underworlds that surged to the heavens within, Shi Tai walked forward, countless spirit talismans beginning to appear around his body. The spirit talismans transformed into numerous spirit arrays. Numerous talisman arrays converged, forming a light projection that resembled an altar and a pagoda enveloping Shi Tai's body. The altar shrank, becoming more and more condensed, merging with Shi Tai's entire body. From the inside out, it was clear and translucent, emanating boundless radiance. At this moment, Shi Tai seemed to have transformed into the indestructible sea, stabilizing divine needle, a cornerstone. He took a step forward and arrived above the crimson abyss, his whole body stepping on the abyss crack. The abyss trembled visibly. Shi Tai then punched out. His punches were slow, heavy, and condensed to the extreme. They looked unbearably slow. However, it was filled with a sense of immortality and immortality. It was as if this punch could stop the vicissitudes of the world, the alternation of the sun, moon, and stars. At this moment, the crimson abyssal crack seemed to be frozen. Time and space stopped. Only the ferocious aura of the 9 underworlds continued to rise, as if it had been infuriated by Shi Tai. An incomparably terrifying existence was about to rush out from the crack. The profound light divine armor on Shi Tai's body flickered with black light. His punch was as heavy as 1,000 mountains, causing the edges of the spatial rift to distort. The power of suppressing the ocean and supporting the heavens forcibly suppressed that crimson deep abyss crack. The crimson crack resembled a wound of the 8 extremities world. At this moment, it twisted intensely, wanting to struggle and expand. However, it was locked in place by Shi Tai's fist intent, unable to expand any further. There seemed to be a ferocious beast trapped within the crack, wanting to break free of its cage and descend into this world, rampaging rampantly. The great 9 underworlds door was successfully locked in place by Shi Tai. However, Yan Zhaoge and the others still could not let down their guard. Above the golden tower, that door condensed of blood-red light had already begun to dissipate like smoke into the wind. The radiance of the tower itself also gradually dimmed, as it seemed to have turned into an ordinary stone tower. The numerous black spirit patterns entangling the golden tower similarly broke apart and dissipated. The domain of devilish qi that enveloped the Wang family ancestral ground did not dissipate at all, instead gradually beginning to change. The black domain of devilish qi was currently gradually turning blood red. Currently, the source of the devilish domain's power had already become that terrifying Great 9 Underworld's door. The original formation, having exhausted its power and having completed its mission, began to dissipate completely. However, only now did an even more terrifying devilish domain descend into this world. The true devilish domain, enveloped by the majestic blood-red devilish qi. Yan Zhaoge and the others all felt the various negative emotions within their hearts being magnified many times over. As compared to when they had been within the black devilish domain earlier, it was even more difficult to stabilize their minds now. This was especially so with the descent of the 9 underworlds, bringing them extremely great pressure. At this moment, uneasiness and even wariness and fear were all growing unceasingly. The impulses to destroy and slaughter that accompanied it were also increasing unceasingly. Everyone, Sure Tai included, had to restrain the various evil thoughts within their hearts, ensuring that they would not be corroded by the 9 underworlds. This way, with their attention diverted, their strength would all be reduced. Sure Tai, suppressing the great 9 underworlds door, faced the greatest pressure. The crimson deep abyss down below distorted even more intensely. Vaguely, there seemed to be dark red blood about to surge out from within the crimson deep abyss. Yen Zhaoge sucked in a deep breath, picking up the pillar of the divine palace and expanding the immortal crane wings on his back. He rapidly glided towards the crimson deep abyss. Having arrived above the deep abyss, Yen Zhaoge patted the pillar of the divine palace. There were numerous patterns of light on the pillar, flickering with a dazzling light as it smashed down towards the crimson deep abyss down below. Suppressed by the pillar of the divine palace, the crimson deep abyss that was currently locked in a contest of strength with Sure Tai instantly plummeted. Sure Tai exhaled and roared, his fist intent unleashing to the maximum as the bloodied water that was surging out of the crimson deep abyss was instantly suppressed back within. The aura of the 9 underworlds skyrocketed violently, seemingly unable to contain its rage, unwilling to retreat. The blood-red devilish chi was broken apart, a group of people rushing in. It was the first seat elder of the Sand region and the others. Seeing the changes occurring in the devilish domain, knowing that Yen Zhaoge and Sure Tai's plan had most likely succeeded, they hurried over to reinforce them. While the first seat elder of the Sand region was far inferior to Sure Tai, he was still an essence talisman martial grandmaster expert, also a powerful force. With his addition, the great 9 underworlds door instantly fell into a complete disadvantage, beginning to close up. The aura of the 9 underworlds skyrocketed, a final feeling of madness emanating from within. Now, from the red light of the deep abyss, numerous streaks of black light suddenly shot into the skies, striking towards Yen Zhaoge and Sure Tai. Elder Tsong and the other broad Creed Mountain martial grandmaster experts all came forward, blocking for Yen Zhaoge and Sure Tai. But that black light was incomparably violent and brutal. Even with the cultivation bases of Elder Tsong and the other essence spirit martial grandmasters, they were all sent flying backwards, one after another. As the black light exploded, a spirit vessel martial grandmaster of Broad Creed Mountain, in a moment of carelessness, had his right hand directly blown off. 9 underworlds in thunder. Yen Zhaoge's pupils dilated slightly, seeing that Sure Tai and the Sand region's first seat elder had already stabilized the crevice. Yen Zhaoge controlled the pillar of the divine palace, suppressing those incoming 9 underworlds in thunder. After being suppressed by the pillar of the divine palace, the remaining netherworld in thunders turned into jet-black lightning beads. But it was still enough to shake the pillars of the divine palace. Yen Zhaoge and the pillar of the divine palace fell together onto the ground. Then he saw a jet-black orb of thunder roll to a place just inches away from him. Right at this moment, an enormous figure suddenly charged out from beside him. It lowered its head and picked up the lightning pearl with its mouth before swiftly running off into the distance. Yen Zhaoge stared wide-eyed. Pan. To be continued. Chapter 257. Pan suddenly rushed out. His usually fat and clumsy frame was now as fast as lightning as he lowered his head and picked up the orb of thunder before Yen Zhaoge, before speeding off into the distance. In the next instant, a loud boom resounded, and the jet-black lightning exploded with a loud bang, soaring into the sky. Yen Zhaoge stared wide-eyed at the dense smoke roiling in that direction, a massive, deep crater having been blasted out where he had been. The 9 underworlds in thunder exploded, a brutal, brutal qi overflowing in all directions, affecting Yen Zhaoga's senses as he could only worry helplessly, consecutively wielding the eye of the Thunder Emperor and the pillar of the Divine Palace had been extremely taxing on Yen Zhaoga as a feeling of weakness assaulted him like a tidal wave. Suddenly, Feng Yunsheng and Hu cheered in unison. Then, he saw a fat figure emerge from the thick smoke with some nimbleness. Pan Pan returned to Yen Zhaoga's side in a charmingly naive manner, extending his tongue to lightly lick him. From the looks of it, it had thrown away the Yin lightning in time and was not injured by it. It was only grazed by the aftershock. Yen Zhaoga instantly heaved a sigh of relief as the feeling of fatigue and weakness surged even more madly, virtually wanting to drown him within. Back then, Yen Zhaoga had forcibly raised his spirits and turned to look in another direction. There, Shi Tai and the first seat elder of the Sand Continent worked together, and finally completely suppressed the Crimson Abyss. Yen Zhaoga sucked in a deep breath, forcibly standing up. Retracting his left hand, he exhaled, punching out with his right hand. Under the stimulation of the martial Dao fist intent, the demonic domain Great Array, which had already been extinguished, suddenly lit up again, and its power was extremely strong, as if it was the final radiance of the setting sun. "Eldest apprentice uncle, make your preparations," Yen Zhaoga said in a heavy tone. Shi Tai nodded his head. Then numerous black runes wrapped around Shi Tai's body like chains. The black spirit patterns converged with Shi Tai as their center. Yen Zhaoga abruptly squatted down, one knee on the ground, as he punched the ground with his right fist. The demonic domain Great Formation suddenly reversed, and the black formation patterns all began to reverse with Shi Tai as the center, drawing in the seemingly endless blood-red devil qi in the surroundings. They surged towards Shi Tai. Shi Tai's expression was firm and unwavering. His entire body seemed to have transformed into Vajra, eternally sturdy and unmoving. He was like a rock by the sea. No matter how the storm raged or how the waves crashed against it, it remained motionless. When the black runes drew the blood-colored demonic qi to his body, Shi Tai's hands suddenly formed a ring and slapped down towards the crimson abyss below. Large amounts of blood-colored demonic qi. Through his body, it was continuously poured into the crimson abyss. Yen Zhaoga let out a long breath before inhaling deeply, resembling a whale inhaling water. He stood up again and strode forward. With a single leap, he arrived behind Shi Tai. Yen Zhaoga's left fist, retracted by his waist, mightily punched out, landing squarely on Shi Tai's back. Shi Tai received Yen Zhaoga's fist calmly. The devilish domain grand formation circulated in reverse, all the spirit pattern chains coiling together behind Shi Tai's back, forming a devilish complicated pattern with Yen Zhaoga's left fist as the center, inscribed within the air. Below, the crimson abyss emitted an unwilling will, but with an unstoppable momentum, it finally closed. The shattered earth mended once again. The distorted space and time. Everything returned to normal. The 9 underworlds which was about to descend was forcibly blocked back. Yen Zhaoga let out a long roar, that strange rune hovering between his left fist and Shi Tai's back beginning to change. The rune transformed into a streak of light. It split into 2, one in front and one behind, respectively landing on Yen Zhaoga and Shi Tai. One portion transformed into a mark that resembled a brand, landing on the back of Yen Zhaoga's left hand. The other portion entered Shi Tai's clothes, disappearing without a trace, but also transformed into a similar pattern. It remained on Shi Tai's back. At this moment, Yen Zhaoga's heart could finally be at ease. Surveying their surroundings, the domain of devilish qi had already dissipated, no traces of it left to be seen. That bewitching, terrifying aura that caused one's heart to tremble in fear had also disappeared. Above their heads, the sky was clear. Seeing the light of day, once more, it was as bright and clear as before. The Sand Region's first seat elder came forward, asking, "Elder Zhaoga, how do you feel?" Shurtai shook his head. "I'm fine." "I'm fine too," Yen Zhaoga answered. "However, after this, eldest apprentice uncle and I both need to cultivate, slowly dissolving the devilish mark. When it has completely disappeared, there will no longer be any future problems." Now, it was equivalent to Yen Zhaoga and Shurtai sharing the pressure of the opening of the Great Nine Underworld's door. Before the devilish mark disappeared, if one of them died, the other would have to bear even more pressure. If the two of them both died, and the devilish mark had still not completely disappeared, there would be a possibility of the Great Nine Underworld's door here in Yunwu County of the Sand Region reopening. The Sand Region's first seat elder said, "We will escort you back to the clan as soon as possible. Leave the aftermath here to this old man." Yen Zhaoga said, "In that battle just now, I expended quite a bit of my vitality. It'll be fine as long as I recuperate and recover. After recovering, with the devilish mark on my back, I won't be affected too much when fighting with others. As long as I don't die, the devilish mark will not reopen." Being able to successfully resolve this massive crisis, everyone here now revealed heartfelt smiles on their faces. Turning, Shurtai gazed at Yen Zhaoga, a rare warm smile appearing on his usually cold, stern face. "Zhaoga, it's all thanks to you this time." This simple sentence caused everyone to jump in fright. Shurtai praising someone was already an extremely rare thing to see. Praising someone like this was even rarer, especially when the other party was still a young man, a martial scholar. When the news spread, it was simply too shocking, hard to believe. However, looking at Yen Zhaoga opposite Shurtai, everyone, the Sand Region's first seat elder included, felt at ease within their hearts, instead feeling that it was only natural that it should be like this. Yen Zhaoga smiled. "Eldest apprentice uncle speaks too seriously. It's all thanks to you, all thanks to every single fellow disciple of Broad Creed Mountain here. All thanks to everyone. This battle was incomparably dangerous. If we were not careful, we would have to seal the Great Nine Underworld's door, engaging in a battle to the death with the Nine Underworld's evil devils, buying time for the other experts of our clan to come to our aid. Forcefully shouldering the risk borne by the South Heaven region, taking the initiative to charge into battle, this isn't something that just anyone can do." Yen Zhaoga cupped his fists, bowing towards the surrounding people. "It's all thanks to everyone here." Elder Tsong sighed, emotionally. "No, it's all thanks to you, Zhaoga. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have the chance to choose, only able to watch as the worst-case scenario came true." Looking at Yen Zhaoga, he sighed within his heart. This young man had actually borne an extremely great amount of pressure. No matter what the situation was over in the South Heaven region, with the devilish domain grand formation having been reactivated here, if the plan failed and the Nine Underworlds really descended here, Yen Zhaoga would definitely be blamed quite a bit. Even if he had saved the completely unprepared South Heaven region, reducing the overall losses, people would often unconsciously overlook the possibility of it not coming true, instead remembering more that Yen Zhaoga had restored the devilish domain grand formation that had originally already been destroyed, causing the Nine Underworlds to descend here in the Sand region. The more one did, the more mistakes one made. The less one did, the less one made. Not doing anything was not bad. Daring to step forward at a critical moment required both responsibility and courage in the first place. The group of Broad Creed Mountain martial grandmasters all solemnly cupped their fists towards Yen Zhaoga. This time, it was all thanks to you, Zhaoga, that we were able to turn the tides. Chapter 258. With the descent of the Nine Underworlds having been stopped, the Battle of the Sand Regions, Yunwu County's Wang family ancestral ground, also finally came to an end. In this battle, Broad Creek Mountain's martial practitioners had similarly suffered losses, but fortunately, it was only a few, supporting each other, temporarily treating their wounds. Under the arrangements of the Sand Region's first seed elder, they began to deal with the aftermath, cleaning up the battlefield. In this battle, the Wang family of Yunwu County had been virtually exterminated, with only a small number of them having been captured and interrogated afterwards. Other than that, a portion of the decimating Abyss martial practitioners, the remnants of Black Nightmare Mountain included, had also been captured alive. What awaited them was similarly cruel interrogation, even death. Following behind Shirtai, Yen Zhaoge left the Wang family ancestral ground. In the distance, there was still a large amount of desert, but having left Yunwu County, signs of human habitation could be seen. Because of the natural environment, the population of the Sand region was less than that of the Heaven Domain's South Heaven region. However, there were also quite a few densely populated areas where many ordinary commoners lived. Looking at these people, Yen Zhaoge smiled slightly. Feeling something, he swiveled his head, seeing Shirtai gazing at the distant town, a hint of a smile also appearing on his usually cold, stern face. Yen Zhaoge let out a long breath, raising his left hand. On the back of his left hand, there was a pattern that resembled a brand. This mark was crimson like blood, as though it was not just engraved on the flesh and blood of Yen Zhaoge's hand, but instead seemed to have penetrated deep into his very soul. Looking at this from the side, Ahu scratched his big head. "Young master, you have performed a great merit this time. However, having such a thing imprinted on your hand is also very troublesome. According to what you said, before this devilish mark is dispelled, if something happens to you and Elder Shur, the great 9 underworld's door here in the Sand region may descend once more. Will the remnants of the decimating Abyss specifically come to kill the two of you?" Yen Zhaoge nodded. "This is a very possible thing. Therefore, we have to be careful of this problem from now on." Ahu pulled back the corners of his lips. "This really is a headache." Yen Zhaoge looked at the devilish mark on the back of his left hand. "It's also not completely a bad thing. Other than some risks, other than the clan's reward, there were also some additional gains this time." Ahu was somewhat at a loss. He also looked at the back of Yen Zhaoge's hand. What other gains were there? Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin with his right hand, looking at his left hand as he said, "Through this operation, as well as this mark which is now left on my hand, I have gained a much deeper understanding of the 9 underworlds and the decimating Abyss. Know yourself and know your enemy. Only then could one win 100 battles. The reason why the situation in Yunwu County was so dangerous was that no one expected the decimating Abyss to change the operation of the demonic domain Grand Array to produce such a change. I was caught unprepared and could only adapt to the situation." Yen Zhaoge put down his left hand. While adapting to the changing circumstances is a word of praise, isn't it also a kind of helplessness? If everything goes according to plan, the risk will be much lower. Feng Yunsheng was also observing the devilish mark on Yen Zhaoge's body from the side. Noticing her gaze, Yen Zhaoge raised his brows. "How is it? I told you before. Last time at Clear Concealed Lake, I wasn't familiar with this formation. Afterwards, I carefully put in some effort. Only now have I truly displayed my skills." Seeing that he was purposely acting as if he was asking for praise, Feng Yunsheng couldn't help but laugh involuntarily, and her mind became much more relaxed. She gave him a thumbs up and said, "Yes, yes, yes. It's because I was inexperienced last time. Please don't take it to heart." Yen Zhaoge nodded satisfactorily. "Very good. This child is worth teaching." Because of the devilish mark, Yen Zhaoge and Shirtai did not intend to continue staying in the Sand region. instead returning to Broad Creed Mountain in the Central Heaven region. Before leaving, the two of them arrived at Suzhou City. Xue Fei had been specially transferred to Suzhou to temporarily fill the vacancy of Suzhou's deacon because of the chaos in the Sand Continent. This time, the trouble did not occur in Suzhou but in the neighboring Yunwu County. This made Xue Fei somewhat useless, but he did his duty faithfully. They firmly guarded Suzhou to prevent the enemy from creating a diversion, allowing the situation in Suzhou to be abnormally stable. Now that the incident in Yunwu County was over, there was no longer a need for Xu Fei to remain in office. After all, when he first came to Suzhou, it was a special case. However, he had no way of returning to Broad Creed Mountain together with Yan Zhaoge, Shi Tai, and the others. He still had to wait until the situation had completely stabilized and the next acting elder of Suzhou had arrived. Only then could he return to Broad Creed Mountain. Seeing Yan Zhaoge and Shi Tai, after paying his respects to Shi Tai, Xue Fei looked at Yan Zhaoge, lightly punching him on the shoulder. "I've heard everything that happened. Good job." Without re-establishing the devilish formation, the location of the Great Nine Underworld's door had changed. The Sand region had been preserved, while the South Heaven region had suffered. To Yan Zhaoge and the other martial practitioners who had participated in the attack on the Wang family ancestral ground, there would naturally be some responsibility. However, it would be shouldered by everyone. Even Elder Tsong, who had personally destroyed the Golden Tower, would not be singled out as a scapegoat. The decimating abyss's heaven and earth great shift this time had surpassed everyone's predictions. If they really had to be held accountable, Broad Creed Mountain's entire strategy had been schemed against by the enemy. It was not their fault, and with the re-establishment of the devilish formation, while the South Heaven region had been preserved, if they had not been able to block the Nine Underworlds back, causing it to descend in the Sand region, Yan Zhaoge, who had proposed this solution, would have to bear at least half the blame. Even if Broad Creed Mountain's higher echelon experts all knew that Yan Zhaoge's plan had actually avoided the worst possible outcome, reducing their losses, with no fault being meritorious. However, in the eyes of the middle and lower echelon martial practitioners, especially those of the Sand region, they might not be able to understand this point. At that time, innumerable blame would come crushing down on Yan Zhaoge like a landslide. Maintaining silence, one would be safe for a short period of time. At the same time, it would be hard to punish the masses. Even if punishment was meted out, it would be everyone being punished together, the punishment not being too heavy. Stepping forward bravely, one's life would be at great risk. Even if one was lucky enough to survive, there was also the possibility of being singled out by the masses, being cursed by everyone. Looking at Yan Zhaoge, Xue Fei sighed lightly. "Good job, Zhaoge." Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly. If it were you, eldest apprentice uncle, they would also have made the same choice. Xue Fei also smiled, patting Yan Zhaoge's shoulder. Retracting the smile on Yan Zhaoge's face, he hesitated for a moment before saying, "There is something that I feel that you should know." Saying thus, Yan Zhaoge glanced at the nearby Shi Tai, eldest apprentice uncle, already knows. Hearing Yan Zhaoge's words, Xue Fei froze where he was. His will was firm and steady. After a moment of shock, he regained his wits, falling into deep thought. Looking at the uncontrollable grief that surfaced within Xue Fei's eyes, Yan Zhaoge also let out a great sigh. "Currently, it is still impossible to verify. It is only my personal guess. Saying this, it is just in case, and I mean in case it is true. I want you to be mentally prepared." Within the devilish domain grand formation at the bottom of Clear Concealed Lake, Xue Fei had also clashed with that masked martial grandmaster. Carefully thinking back to that scene, he knit his brows tightly. Shaking his head, Xue Fei took off the wineskin at his waist, fiercely gulping down a mouthful before wiping his mouth, saying emotionally, "Relax, I'm fine." After taking their leave of Xue Fei, Yen Zhaoga, Shi Tai, and the others immediately returned to Broad Creed Mountain. While it was a long and arduous journey, with Shi Tai bringing them along, they still very quickly returned to the clan. Someone was already waiting there, bringing good news. The escaping Elder Lu has already been captured by Elder Yen. To be continued. Chapter 259. Elder Lu was the person who had previously hidden behind the scenes and directed the Devil Chi from the Sand region to the South Heaven region. An Essence Talisman, Martial Grandmaster Expert. Another higher echelon expert of Broad Creed Mountain who had been corroded by the 9 underworlds and the decimating abyss after Elder Wang. After his identity had been exposed, he had immediately attempted to flee. However, in the end, he had still not been able to escape the clutches of Yen Zhaoga's father, Yen Di, as he had been captured and brought back. When Yen Zhaoga saw him once more, while this old man's spirit was dispirited and listless, his gaze was arrogant and fearless as he just smiled coldly at Yen Zhaoga and Yen Di. This included the old sect Yuan Zhongfeng, as well as Fang Zhuan and Shi Tai. All of them frowned as they looked at Elder Lu. Senior Marshal Brother Wang's problem is his lifespan. Yuan Zhongfeng said slowly, "What about you, Junior Marshal Brother Lu? What caused you to end up like this?" Elder Lu turned to look at Yuan Zhongfeng and sized him up with a strange gaze. After a while, Elder Lu said, "Senior Brother Yuan, I haven't called you that in a long time. Ever since you became the sect leader, I've been calling you sect leader." Yuan Zhongfeng's expression did not change, but there was a hint of emotion in his eyes. In the outside world, every single descendant of Broad Creed Mountain was a heaven's favored son. For example, while Elder Lu was not a peak expert within Broad Creed Mountain, leaving Broad Creed Mountain, he would immediately be a hegemon-level figure. Essence Talisman Martial Grandmasters outside of the 6 great sacred grounds were few and far between. Being able to become an Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster, Elder Lu was already an achievement that surpassed countless people. However, there would always be a higher mountain. Even if they were all geniuses, there would always be a higher mountain. There were also differences in strength between them. For example, Yuan Zhongfeng and Xian Dongping were the most outstanding figures of their generation. As for Elder Wang and Elder Lu, they were geniuses among geniuses. However, compared to Yuan Zhongfeng, he paled in comparison. Elder Wang had joined earlier than Yuan Zhongfeng, while Elder Lu had joined later. Looking at the white-haired old man in front of him, Yuan Zhongfeng seemed to see the image of the elegant young man who had asked him for advice on a difficult problem in martial arts. However, Elder Lu continued to speak in a strange tone. "Senior Brother Yuan, I've always found it strange. Aren't you worried at all?" Yuan Zhongfeng's gaze hardened as he gazed at Elder Lu, while Elder Lu was also looking at him. After becoming a martial saint, the power and position that will be brought about will not be mentioned for now. Dealing with the pressure of the Sacred Sun clans, Huang Guanglei, will also not be mentioned for now. Most importantly, Senior Brother Yuan, your lifespan is about to run out because of your old injuries, right? Elder Lu chuckled and said, "Although you are a transcendent martial grandmaster, your lifespan is shorter than other transcendent martial grandmasters. How much lifespan do you have left? How about 10 years? If it's 10 years, what about 20? Yuan Zhongfeng's gaze turned calm as he looked calmly at Elder Lu, saying candidly, "If I were to estimate it myself, if I don't step into the martial saint realm, it should be around 10 to 15 years. Elder Lu's expression was a little sorrowful. "Right, I also only have around 10 years left at most." A few years ago, chatting with Senior Brother Wang, he mentioned that his lifespan might already be less than 10 years. It is true that his cultivation base is higher than mine, but he's also much older than me. Now, He doesn't have many years left. Elder Lu looked at Yuan Zhengfeng. Senior brother Yuan, watching yourself step by step towards the end of your lifespan, just like this. How do you feel in your heart? Yuan Zhengfeng asked mildly. Is this the reason? Elder Lu said, let me face sabers and swords. Let me battle with other martial practitioners. I will not fear it. Even if the enemy is stronger than me, even if the chances are small, I will still have the chance to struggle. While it is rare for the weak to defeat the strong, it is not impossible. Until the final moment, victory and defeat are still unknown. Elder Lu's expression turned cold. However, my current opponent is the heavens. Having worked so hard till now, I can already see clearly that under normal circumstances, there is already no hope for me to advance any further in my cultivation base. In this battle for longevity against the heavens, I am unable to win. I have already lost, with no chance of victory at all. Looking at Yuan Zhengfeng, Elder Lu laughed bitterly. Senior brother Yuan, your old injuries prevent you from having sufficient confidence in breaking through into the martial saint realm. However, that is because you are our clan's chief, Broad Creed Mountain's current strongest expert. Surrounded by powerful enemies in the outside world, you do not dare to take the risk lightly, because if any mishap occurs, Broad Creed Mountain might collapse. However, you at least have hope. You can go all out, have the possibility of winning. Just like in battle with a powerful enemy, you can be killed by the enemy, but you can also defeat the enemy. What about me and senior brother Wang? We can only quietly wait for death. Elder Lu said hoarsely, death originally wasn't scary, but having no hope at all watching it approach bit by bit. Yet everything I do is futile. Things that originally weren't scary also gradually became boundless terror, enveloping one's heart. Yuan Zhengfeng looked straight at him. Therefore, joining the 9 underworlds resolved your problem? Elder Lu chuckled strangely. Even martial saints have a limit to their longevity, while true 9 underworlds evil devils are undying and inextinguishable existences. Yen Di said mildly. In the Earth domain, I once killed 9 underworlds evil devils that had occasionally appeared. The smile on Elder Lu's face was very mocking. I don't know if those you killed were truly pure 9 underworlds evil devils, but if they were, do you think you really killed them? True 9 underworlds evil devils, even if they are destroyed, will be reborn in the depths of the 9 underworlds, because devils are undying and inextinguishable. Elder Lu pointed at his heart, smiling strangely. As long as the obsessions, evil thoughts, and desires of the human heart are not extinguished, devils will never perish. Not just humans. As long as there are living beings that still have their desires and obsessions in this world, even if devils are destroyed for a time, they will still be able to be reborn in the end. Yan Zhaoge had always been listening quietly by the side, not interrupting. Now he suddenly laughed. Then, do you know that when devils are destroyed and reborn, it is actually equivalent to a completely new existence? If you place your hopes on this, obtaining eternal life, do you think that would still be you? Glancing at Yan Zhaoge rather hatefully, Elder Lu snorted coldly. You are not an evil devil, also not having been to the 9 underworlds before. What are you boasting about? Yan Zhaoge spread his hands apart. All right, let's not discuss such a complicated issue for now. Let's talk about something simple and crude. Elder Lu, since you know about devils being reborn after being destroyed, you should also know that not all devils can be reborn. The so-called true 9 underworlds evil devils are related to their level of power. Looking at Elder Lu, Yan Zhaoge said neither hurriedly nor slowly, with your current cultivation base having fallen to the dark side, it still does not reach the standard for rebirth. Flames of fury arose within Elder Lu's eyes as he glared hatefully at Yan Zhaoge, panting heavily. The increase in strength brought about by falling to the dark side will allow me to break through the bottleneck that I have always been stuck at, successfully ascending to the next level obtaining even more longevity, advancing towards a higher level. Very soon, I will obtain the chance to attain eternal life. As for you, even if you become martial saints, so what? Yin Zhaoge said mildly. Oh, that's a pity. You no longer have that chance now. Chapter 260. Looking at Yin Zhaoge's casual manner, Elder Lu felt his heart burn with rage. It was precisely this youth before him who had spoiled his and the decimating abyss's plans, also extinguishing his final hope. Once, if he had praised this youth, saying that a tiger father would not beget a dog son, it would have been a great honor for him. Now, however, this youth had decided his fate. Yin Zhaoge said calmly, "You want to use the lives of countless life forms as the price in exchange for your own advancement. Whether this is right or wrong, I won't judge it here. After all, in your eyes, the lives of millions of people may not be comparable to your life alone. You are free to think this way. But on the other hand, if your plan fails, you will naturally have to bear the corresponding price. Elder Lu, you should have long since been mentally prepared for this, right? No matter how much you emphasize your pain and helplessness, your unwillingness and struggles, it won't change this." Yin Zhaoge smiled mildly. "It can't be that you want to tell us that you feel that it is only natural for you to obtain what you want after you succeed, while nothing will happen to you if you fail, right?" Elder Lu panted heavily, staring fixedly at Yin Zhaoge. Yin Zhaoge met his gaze calmly, his expression not changing at all, filled with playfulness. Yuan Zhengfeng waved his hands lightly. "Zhaoge." Yin Zhaoge smiled slightly, nodding towards Yuan Zhengfeng before taking a step back, no longer speaking. Gazing at Yin Zhaoge, his gaze sweeping across the devilish mark on the back of Yin Zhaoge's left hand. Elder Lu was slightly taken aback. After pondering for a moment, he generally understood the situation. He was no longer agitated, but his gaze was even colder as he looked at Yin Zhaoge. "Little thief, don't be happy too early." Yin Zhaoge raised his brows slightly, the corners of his mouth revealing an expression that resembled a smile, whilst also not a smile as he looked at Elder Lu, not speaking. Yuan Zhengfeng sighed, looking at Elder Lu, saying, "Junior apprentice brother Lu, at this point, there is no point in saying more. Like senior apprentice brother Wang, what do you know regarding the 9 underworlds and the decimating abyss? Speak. If Sure Tai makes a move, it won't look good on everyone's faces." Elder Lu let out a muffled groan. From Elder Lu's interrogation, he had gained some information regarding the decimating abyss. He had gained a greater understanding of Broad Creed Mountain. However, the question that all of Broad Creed Mountain paid the most attention to was whether any of the higher echelon experts of Broad Creed Mountain had also been corroded by the decimating abyss and the 9 underworlds. Unfortunately, Elder Lu did not give him an answer to this question. Just like Elder Wang back then, experts at their level were all roped in and corroded by the decimating abyss alone. Unless there was a huge incident like the incident at Clear Concealed Lake, which required many experts to work together. It was also difficult for them to determine whether the other was from the decimating abyss. Instead, because of Elder Lu's exposure, it was like pulling out the carrot and bringing out the mud. Among the middle and lower-ranked martial artists, those who had been corrupted by him, were also exposed. Exiting the disciplinary hall, Yin Zhaoge followed behind Yuan Zhengfeng, and the others, the atmosphere in the group somewhat heavy. Fang Zhuan said softly, "It was my mistake. Elder Lu's recent departure from the mountain and transfer of some resources were all approved by me. I'm still not vigilant enough." Yuan Zhengfeng waved his hand. "None of us knew what was needed to set up the demonic domain formation. You can't be blamed for this. The resources that you approved were all within Junior Brother Lu's authority." He walked a few steps in front of them, swiveling his head to look at Yin Zhaoge and Sure Tai. He smiled. "You did very well this time. It was all thanks to you. Otherwise, with the Great Nine Underworld's door opening unguarded in the heart of the South Heaven region, the results would have been too horrible to contemplate. Shi Tai said it was Zhaoga's idea. Yuan Zhongfeng nodded, smiling. That's right, Zhaoga has performed a great merit again. But my broad Creed Mountain's resources have long since been emptied in order to reward you. Now, what should I reward you with? Yen Zhaoga chuckled. Grand Master, you just have to think about it a little. They didn't feel offended, instead all laughing. After entering the clan's main hall, Yuan Zhongfeng sat down on the main seat, saying, other than the problem of the 9 underworlds and the decimating abyss, another major matter has occurred recently. The old man's expression turned somewhat solemn. There is definite news that during this period of time, while our clan was dealing with the decimating abyss, the Sacred Sun clan obtained a purple essence containing jade in the southern wilderness. Currently, Yen Di and Fang Juan were already aware of it, but this was the first time Yen Zhaoga and Shi Tai had heard of it. Yen Zhaoga knit his brows. The purple essence containing jade was an extremely rare treasure, even rarer than the imitation killing jade. Similarly, it was already a thing of legend, not having appeared in this world for many years, generally believed to have already been completely extinct. In terms of preciousness, this thing was much more important than the imitation killing jade, because it was of great benefit to the cultivation of martial saints. The Sacred Sun clan obtaining the purple essence containing jade held great significance, signifying that the possibility of the East coming martial saint Huang Guangliu advancing a step further was even greater. A pity that the extreme Yin crown is currently not in our hands, and the decimating abyss is constantly drawing in our attention. Yen Zhaoga shook his head rather regretfully. After Infinite Boundless Mountain had formed an alliance with Broad, Creed Mountain, and Jade Sea City, if any of the 3 had the extreme Yin crown, they would be able to suppress the Sacred Sun clan's world-illuminating peak even as they restrained the Heavenly Thunder Hall, forcing Huang Guangliu to leave seclusion early no matter what. However, now that the extreme Yin crown was in the hands of Turbid Wave Pavilion, and the Sacred Sun clan had retracted their defenses at their world-illuminating peak, their hopes were very low. Yuan Zhongfeng said, while we have been working hard on our plans, our opponents have similarly not been idle. Everyone nodded in unison. Now, Yuan Zhongfeng's sound transmission suddenly resounded by Yen Zhaoga's ear. Speaking of this, you still have a great merit. Yen Di mentioned to this old man that you also contributed to that heaven-returning divine pill. Yen Zhaoga controlled himself not to look at Yuan Zhongfeng, maintaining a nonchalant look on his face. In the entire Broad Creed Mountain, there were only a scant few who clearly knew the secret of the heaven-returning divine pill. Even among Yen Zhaoga's side, only Ahu knew about it. Currently, the people in the Great Hall, Shi Tai and Fang Juan, also did not know about the matter of the heaven-returning divine pill. This could be said to be Broad Creed Mountain's current top secret. Other than those who had handled it, only the old clan chief, Yuan Zhongfeng, knew about it. Glancing at Yen Di, warmth arose within Yen Zhaoga's heart. According to the results of their initial discussion, the main credit should be given to Yen Di alone as much as possible. But from the looks of it now, his father was still very concerned about him. Yen Di's expression was similarly as per usual. Like Yen Zhaoga, neither father nor son revealed anything at all. Now, an old man and an old woman walked in. They were precisely the 2 grand elders of Broad Creed Mountain. Other than them, there was also another old man, shockingly the ex-Xian Dongping, who had never once left the martial repository. For a time, all of Broad Creed Mountain's core decision-makers here, other than a long-time elder who guarded over the heaven-sealing gorge, were all present, looking at them. Yuan Zhongfeng said slowly, you all already know about the matter of the Sacred Sun clan obtaining the purple essence containing jade. To us, Time is already of the utmost urgency. Therefore, this old man has decided to formally enter secluded cultivation in the next few days, attempting to break through into the martial saint realm. Chapter 261. Hearing that Yuan Zhengfeng had decided to go into seclusion to break through to the martial sacred realm, most of the people present had heavy hearts. Broad Creed Mountain's current #1 female expert, the Grand Elder of Broad Creed Mountain of the same generation as Yuan Zhengfeng, Elder He looked at Yuan Zhengfeng and said in a heavy tone, "Chief, your old injury." Yuan Zhengfeng's expression was tranquil. "We've already dragged it out for a long time. If we don't fight now, we might not be able to in the future. For a long time now, the external situation has been too grim. This old man has wanted to risk it all, but I didn't dare to leave and go into seclusion. The current situation is the best we've seen in years. If you don't dare to make a move now, then there's no need to make a move. Of course, the more crucial reason is that if this old man does not succeed, and the Sacred Sun Clan's old man Huang succeeds, the situation that had just taken a turn for the better with great difficulty will instantly reverse, and will also be unprecedentedly grim. We can only hope that Turbid Wave Pavilion will also stand on our side. Otherwise, whether you and I can even talk peacefully here will become a question." Yuan Zhengfeng sighed softly. "Now, we don't have master to shelter us from the wind and rain." Yen Zhaoge was the only young disciple here, as he quietly listened to the conversation of Yuan Zhengfeng and the others. Yuan Zhengfeng's master, Yendi's Grand Master, Yen Zhaoge's great-grandmaster, was precisely the chief of Broad Creed Mountain after the exalted heaven shaker Zhan Dongge, the heaven diviner Zhan Shilo. In terms of seniority, Zhan Dongge was Yen Zhaoge's grand senior apprentice granduncle, as well as Yen Di, Shi Tai, and the others. Still, due to the unique influence of these two legendary figures, ever since Yen Di and Shi Tai's generation, it had become customary to address them as Ancestor Hantian and Ancestor Heaven Diviner. This form of address was extended to even younger Broad Creed Mountain disciples. The Heaven Diviner Zhan Shilo was also Broad Creed Mountain's final martial saint up until now. Ever since his death, Broad Creed Mountain had not produced another martial saint. Yuan Zhengfeng and Xian Dongping, who had originally been favored to step into the martial saint realm, were both stuck at the bottleneck of transcending mortality martial grandmasters. Beside Elder He, Broad Creed Mountain's other grand elder, Elder Zhang, gazed at Xian Dongping, where his senior apprentice brother Xian. Xian Dongping sat there quietly, simply replying, "The heat is not there yet." Elder He and Elder Zhang both sighed. This old man has decided to go into seclusion. It's hard to predict whether this seclusion will be good or bad, and I don't know how long it will take, so I need someone to be there while I'm in seclusion, temporarily take up this old man's burden. This way, this old man can go all out and attack the martial saint realm with all my strength. His gaze swept across Xian Dongping, Elder He, and Elder Zhang. During this period of seclusion, I hope that you 3 junior apprentice brothers and junior apprentice sister can assist this person. Help our sect move forward steadily. Xian Dongping nodded quietly. All right, Elder Zhang. And Elder, he pondered for a moment before nodding. Since sect head senior brother has made up his mind, we will do as you say. Yuan Zhengfeng had long intended to enter closed-door cultivation, to break through to martial sage. However, due to various reasons, he had not been able to do so. Everyone was already mentally prepared for this. Currently, the external situation was relatively safe, and with the purple essence containing jade, the Sacred Sun Clan's latent threat was becoming more and more pressing. Everyone knew this. Yuan Zhengfeng's seclusion this time was already imperative. Although it was a temporary responsibility, it was already close to deciding the candidate for the future sect leader. If Yuan Zhengfeng failed and perished, needless to say, the position of sect head would automatically be taken over. Yuan Zhengfeng's current arrangements were virtually his last words. If Yuan Zhengfeng successfully advanced a step further, he would most likely pass on his position like the Sacred Sun clan's Huang Guanglia after emerging from seclusion, spending more of his time in secluded cultivation, seeking to break through a step further, rather than continuing to manage the clan's affairs. The more crucial thing here was the sacred artifact that suppressed Broad Creed Mountain, the clear Qi robe. It was generally agreed that the clear Qi robe was controlled by the clan's #1 expert. With the strong joining forces, it would be easy to compete with other peak experts. If the #1 expert was in seclusion or away, it would generally be controlled by the chief. The person temporarily taking over the position of chief would also mean that he would obtain the sacred artifact, the clear Qi robe. Other than that, the main control over Broad Creed Mountain's Guardian Grand formation. It would also be taken over by this person. Yuan Zhengfeng's gaze now fell on Yan Di, Fang Juan, and Shi Tai. Shi Tai's gaze was heavy, not rippling in the slightest. He had long since said that he would not take over the position of chief. Fang Juan's gaze was as deep as the abyss, resembling the deep sea as no ripples could be seen at all. Yan Di's gaze was calm, resembling the vast blue sky, grand and lofty, exuberant. Beside Yan Di, Yan Zhaoge similarly had a calm expression on his face as he silently awaited the arrival of the final moment. Yuan Zhengfeng's gaze only swept past the three of them, not hesitating as he said mildly and simply, "Yan Di, while you are Master's youngest, final disciple, Master has decided to place this burden on your shoulders. Are you willing to bear it?" Yan Di's expression did not change as he stood up from his seat, then slowly knelt down before Yuan Zhengfeng. This disciple will strive to the utmost, not letting down Master and the clan's trust. By the side, Fang Juan's expression was as per usual. Xian Dongping's gaze was quietly focused on Yan Di before Yuan Zhengfeng. Looking at Yan Di, Yuan Zhengfeng said, "While you are only temporarily taking over the position of chief, everyone will know that Master is about to enter secluded cultivation in an attempt to break through into the martial saint realm. What the Sacred Sun clan thinks is not important. Whether it is us or them, we all know that we are fighting against time. However, as the news spreads, it is hard to predict what Infinite Boundless Mountain and Jade Sea City will think." Yuan Zhengfeng encouraged, "During this period of time, the situation is delicate. How you grasp it will depend on you." Yan Di said calmly, "Rest easy, Master. This disciple and the various senior apprentice uncles and senior apprentice brothers will all act carefully." Yuan Zhengfeng suddenly smiled, glancing at Yan Zhaoge. "Zhaoge has performed a great merit this time. With his cultivation base, there is already virtually nothing left to reward him with. Let the outside world think that this reward was received by a father on behalf of his son." Everyone present laughed. Perhaps some outsiders would indeed think that Yan Zhaoge was helping Yan Di gain face, but deciding on Yan Di to temporarily take over the position of chief naturally wouldn't be just for this reason alone. However, thinking about it carefully, everyone could also feel that from a certain perspective, Yan Zhaoge was really Yan Di's lucky star. More importantly, Yan Zhaoge's current performance was something that no one of the entire Broad Creed Mountain's younger generation could compare to. Before the incident of Yunwu County in the Sand region, Yan Zhaoge had already been groomed as the successor of the next generation. If no major accidents occurred, he was very likely to become the next chief of Broad Creed Mountain in the future. Yuan Zhengfeng looked at Yan Di. "Follow Master." He rose and walked towards the back of the great hall, Yan Di following behind him. Yan Zhaoge and the others watched Yuan Zhengfeng and his disciple leave, knowing that they were going to complete the handover of the clear Qi robe and Broad Creed Grand formation. The great hall fell silent, no one speaking any longer. Elder He and Elder Zhang's gazes swept past Shi Tai and Fang Zhuan, finally coming to rest on Fang Zhuan. To be continued. Chapter 262. Everyone's gazes all rested on Fang Zhuan. Fang Zhuan's expression was calm and without ripples, as if what had just happened had nothing to do with him at all. Seeing Fang Zhuan like this, it wasn't good for the others to continue staring at him as they all retracted their gazes. At this time, it seemed that no matter what he said, it would not be appropriate. Yan Zhaoge's eyes were focused on his nose on his heart as he waited there quietly. Yan Zhaoge felt rather emotional as he had finally achieved what he had been planning for from the very beginning. However, it was indeed unexpected that the external environment would turn into the current situation. The 9 underworlds, the decimating abyss, the Sacred Sun clan. Yan Zhaoge's gaze was a little distant as he pondered, not speaking. That day, Broad Creed Mountain's current chief, Yuan Zhengfeng, announced that due to his old age and lack of energy, his disciple, the former first seat elder of Broad Creed Mountain's Martial Inheritance Hall, Yan Di, would be assisting him in handling the clan's affairs. Yan Di relinquished his position as the first seat elder of the Martial Inheritance Hall, someone else taking over his position. After all of Broad Creed Mountain had learned of the news, they all had differing thoughts. The comparatively older, long-time elders all felt vaguely worried. In recent years, Fang Zhuan's style of doing things had also become tougher. In comparison, however, Yan Di's style was undoubtedly tougher and more radical. Meanwhile, the attitude of Broad Creed Mountain's senior generation experts was the exact opposite, as they felt invigorated by this. The martial practitioners of Broad Creed Mountain, who had always been close to Yan Di's faction, celebrated even more, running about as though the clouds had been dispelled to reveal the sun. As for the martial practitioners of Broad Creed Mountain, who were close to Fang Zhuan's faction, while it couldn't be said that they were mourning everywhere, their morale was also low. Yan Di's style was domineering and tough, but he wasn't narrow-minded. Everyone here was also of Broad Creed Mountain. So Fang Zhuan's group naturally wouldn't be worried that Yan Di would settle scores with them later on. As long as he didn't cross the line, like Eastern Tang's principal elder, Yan Su. However, it would be more difficult for them to rise in the sect in the future. He needed more solid results and more outstanding talents. Yan Di was magnanimous enough to let bygones be bygones while also changing his perspective. He began to consider problems from the perspective of the sect leader, from the perspective of the entire sect. Only talent mattered, ensuring the unity and stability of the entire sect. However, under the premise that both sides were equally talented and capable, it did not need to be said whether he would choose his faction or Fang Zhuan's. This was only to be expected. If it were Fang Zhuan or anyone else in his position, the situation would be the same. As the sect leader, he was the chief of all of Broad Creed Mountain, but beneath the chief, there would definitely be hardcore supporters. As it turned out, if the people on Fang Zhuan's side wanted to rise, they had to be truly stronger than their competitors. As Yan Di's control over the clan grew stronger and stronger, with everyone being closely united by his side, truly being of one mind, such a situation would gradually disappear. At that time, there would no longer be any distinction between direct and non-direct descendants. However, this will take some transition time. From a certain perspective, the length of the transition period was also a reflection of Yan Di's capabilities. However, on the whole, it did not affect the overall situation at all. While Yan Di was only temporarily acting as chief, he could immediately guarantee a relatively complete control over Broad Creed Mountain. Having been the chief of Broad Creed Mountain for many years, Yuan Zhengfeng's prestige and authority were unquestionable. Within the sect, there were actually more neutral factions. They would support whoever Yuan Zhang Feng, decided to be the sect leader. The only difference was how much support they had. As for Yan Di, with his own ability and prestige, he could ensure that these neutral Broad Creed Mountain higher echelon experts would give him strong support after he took over. Therefore, on the whole, while some people felt disappointed and worried, the internal change of Broad Creed Mountain's chief position, there were no ripples. On the way back to his lodgings, Yan Zhaoge met with his fellow disciples, all of whom were congratulating him. However, this was not because Yan Di's position had risen, but because Yan Zhaoge had risen along with him. The current Yan Zhaoge had reappeared in the internal crystal furnace, had made important contributions in the War of the Eastern Tang, had found a maiden of extreme for the clan, had ingeniously schemed at Cloud Portent Mountain to pull Infinite Boundless Mountain into their camp, had illuminated the heavenly connection meet at Clear Concealed Lake, had forcibly broken through Clear Concealed Lake's devilish domain Grand Formation, not long ago, in the incident of Yunwu County in the Wind Domain Sand region, he had once again turned the tides. All these things had already long since confirmed Yan Zhaoge's current position. It would not be an exaggeration to say that even if something happened to his father Yan Di now, it would not affect Yan Zhaoge's current situation at all. No matter who succeeded the position of chief, Yan Zhaoge's position and treatment in Broad Creed Mountain were already as stable as Mount Tai. His current prestige and position stemmed more from himself rather than from others. In everyone's hearts, the current concept of him being the Broad Creed young master Yan Zhaoge was deeply ingrained, and not the son of Broad Creed Mountain's newly appointed temporary chief, Yan Di. It was even to the extent that in many people's hearts, the title of Broad Creed young master was already gradually no longer suitable for Yan Zhaoge. Under the heavens, there were few who still viewed him as an ordinary youngster. His numerous achievements had already caused people to begin overlooking Yan Zhaoge's age. Therefore, everyone congratulating Yan Zhaoge at this moment was purely out of congratulating his father for successfully advancing a step further. It was more like a normal exchange of human relations. Yan Zhaoge could more or less feel this. He smiled in return, also appearing unfazed by honor or disgrace, as per usual. Walking on the mountain path, Yan Zhaoge suddenly halted, his gaze piercing through the dense forest as he looked in the direction outside the mountain. With the news of my father's temporary chief having spread, others will also be able to guess that Grand Master is in secluded cultivation, attempting a breakthrough into the martial saint realm. Stroking his lower chin, Yan Zhaoge pondered. As the news spread outside of Broad Creed Mountain, the entire Eight Extremities world was indeed shaken by it. The competition between Yan Di and Fang Zhuan of Broad Creed Mountain's lineage was not a secret. The other 5 sacred grounds, as well as first- and second-rate powers, had similarly been paying close attention to it. Now that it vaguely felt like the dust had settled, everyone sighed, at the same time adjusting their own plans based on the results. At the same time, those of the other sacred grounds also judged that this meant that Broad Creed Mountain's old chief, Yuan Zhangfeng, was finally going to attempt that final step, attempting a breakthrough into the martial saint realm. The news that the Sacred Sun clan had obtained the purple essence containing jade, and that the great sun comes east, Huang Guanglia might very likely advance to a higher level also spread under the heavens. Receiving the news, Jade Sea City and Infinite Boundless Mountain both maintained their silence. If Yuan Zhangfeng successfully advanced a step further, Broad Creed Mountain's leading position in the alliance of the 3 clans would be completely established, and Broad Creed Mountain would also become a massive power that was completely not inferior to the current Sacred Sun clan. This was rather important as to what Jade Sea City and Infinite Boundless Mountain should do next. However, the pressure of Huang Guanglia possibly advancing a step further was also real. Turbid Wave Pavilion still did not express any stance, while the Sacred Sun clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall appeared normal on the surface, Great waves were surging within. At the peak of the Sacred Sun Clan's world-illuminating peak, the current chief, Huang Su, gazed in the direction of the northern heaven domain, asking quietly, "How are the preparations?" Chapter 263. Behind Huang Su stood a middle-aged man, precisely the Twilight Lord of the Seven Reigning Suns. The Twilight Lord replied, "Everything is ready, only waiting for the old sect master to come out of seclusion." His voice paused for a moment before he continued, "If the situation is right, then we don't have to wait for the old sect master to come out of seclusion." Huang Su nodded and turned to the side. There stood a quiet young man, like a shadow under the sunlight. It was his son, the world-illuminating young master, Huang Jia. Huang Jia exchanged a glance with his father, Huang Su, and softly said, "It would be best if we can wait for grandfather to come out of seclusion." Huang Su and Twilight Lord didn't ask any more questions. They nodded and withdrew their gazes from Huang Jia. Gazing in the direction of the northern heaven domain, Huang Su muttered to himself, "Broad Creed Mountain, so many years, you have been an eyesore for long enough." It was not just the Sacred Sun Clan. To the northeast of the Eight Extremities world, in the region of the Thunder Domain's 6 regions, lay the Heavenly Thunder Hall of the current world's 6 great sacred grounds. The sky above where the Heavenly Thunder Hall was located was filled densely with thunderclouds all year round, causing one's heart to tremble with fear. The massive palace complex was constructed entirely of greenish-purple metal. It looked like the palace of the Thunder Emperor. In the core of the main hall, a bald, old man sat on the main seat, looking at the people in front of him. The old man was bald and had a purple goatee on his chin. As he sat there, he did not exude any powerful aura and appeared very calm. But when others faced him, they would involuntarily feel their hearts palpitate, as if they were facing the most violent lightning. The bald old man was precisely the current lord of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, the green thunder martial saint known as Shocking Thunder all round. Shunli, this lord of the Heavenly Thunder Hall's gaze swept across the higher echelon experts of the Heavenly Thunder Hall present, saying slowly, "The Sacred Sun Clans, Huang Guanglia and Broad Creed Mountains, Yuan Zhengfeng, are both seeking to advance further in their cultivation. The situation is delicate. Even though I just suffered a defeat in the Sand region, if this old man was the leader of the decimating abyss, I would do it once more on Broad Creed Mountain's territory." Although he spoke slowly, his voice was deep and powerful. It was as if thunder was rolling down, full of pressure. On Shun Li's left and right sat the bigwigs of the Heavenly Thunder Hall. Behind one of the middle-aged men, with a formidable appearance, stood a young man with a calm expression and sharp eyes. It was the thunder-rumbling young master, Lin Zhou. He was also the only Grandmaster martial artist and the only junior disciple who was allowed to participate. The middle-aged man, before Lin Zhou, was naturally his father, the first seat elder of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, Lin Tianfeng. If the decimating abyss has infiltrated even deeper into the higher echelons of Broad Creed Mountain, this time would indeed be their chance, Lin Tianfeng said, but it would also depend on how much strength they possess. Before the heaven-equaling Yuan Zhengfeng enters secluded cultivation, he would definitely have made appropriate arrangements. Having Yin Di act as the chief is one of them. With the clear Qi robe and Broad Creed Mountain's guardian grand formation present, ordinary people can't cause trouble, Lin Tianfeng said slowly. However, speaking of the 9 underworlds and the decimating abyss, there is someone in Broad Creed Mountain who is worth paying attention to. A grand elder of the Heavenly Thunder Hall opposite him nodded. The one who was defeated in the competition for Broad Creed Mountain's chief this time, Hidden Dragon Feng Zhuan. Lin Tianfeng said, "That's right. Losing the competition with Yen Di virtually caused the name of Hidden Dragon to become a joke." Fang Zhuan can only be a hidden dragon in this life, not soaring into the 9 heavens and transforming into a true dragon. The true dragon is someone else, his junior apprentice brother of the same clan, Yan Di. The reason why Fang Zhuan had the name of Hidden Dragon was that year. He was the most outstanding amongst those of the same generation in Broad Creed Mountain. Amongst those of the same generation, there was no one who could surpass him. Whether it was within Broad Creed Mountain or outside of Broad Creed Mountain, everyone in the 8 Extremities world thought highly of him as Yuan Zhongfeng's successor, Broad Creed Mountain's new chief. In that era, amongst those of the same generation in the entire 8 Extremities world, only the current chief of the Sacred Sun clan, Huang Su, and a few others could be mentioned in the same breath as Fang Zhuan. The Lin Tianfeng, who was here now, compared to Fang Zhuan that year, was also a bit weaker. When Fang Zhuan's fame had risen that year, Yan Di had not even entered Broad Creed Mountain yet. However, in the end, Yan Di had caught up, causing the hidden dragon to be trapped within the deep abyss, unable to ascend to the heavens. Under such circumstances, whether or not Fang Zhuan would lose his mind, whether or not he would be tempted by the 9 underworlds and the decimating abyss, was actually something that the entire 8 Extremities world was concerned about. Hearing Lin Tianfeng mention this matter, those of the Heavenly Thunder Hall all nodded slightly. However, their gazes also inadvertently swept past the person seated beside Lin Tianfeng. That person looked similar to Lin Tianfeng in appearance, currently expressionless, yet was another first seat elder of the Heavenly Thunder Hall. He was also Yan Shan's master, the person who had previously competed with Lin Tianfeng for the position of the next Lord of the Heavenly Thunder Hall after Shun Li. Once upon a time, his advantage had been immense, pressuring Lin Tianfeng to the point where he was virtually unable to withstand it. However, in the past year or so, Lin Tianfeng had consecutively performed great feats, not only reversing his disadvantage, he had even reversed the situation completely, instead gaining the upper hand in the battle. While the competition over at the Heavenly Thunder Hall was not as settled as at Broad Creed Mountains, Lin Tianfeng's current advantage was already exceptionally great. As long as he did not commit a fatal mistake, the other party would definitely be hard-pressed to make a comeback. Yan Shan's master was currently expressionless, as he said, with the Sacred Sun clan having obtained the purple essence containing jade, Huang Guanglia having advanced a step further, virtually becoming a permanent fixture. Whether or not Broad Creed Mountain's Yuan Zhongfeng can succeed is still another matter. How should our Heavenly Thunder Hall proceed from here on out? Lin Tianfeng no longer mentioned the matter of Fang Zhuan, instead saying, Yuan Zhongfeng's secluded cultivation this time will definitely not be peaceful. If the Sacred Sun clan's strength rises a step further, our clan should also make more plans for ourselves. Strength is the foundation of everything, whether it is in confrontation or cooperation. On the master's seat, Shunli now spoke calmly. Let's wait and see, waiting for a chance to act. Broad Creed Mountain's clear chi robe is a good thing. If the decimating abyss wants to cause trouble this time, it will definitely be a major move, possibly allying with the flame devils of the East Sea once more. At that time, Jade Sea City will not have the time to interfere with us. As Shunli said this, his gaze swept across all the bigwigs of the Heavenly Thunder Hall present. Our clan's internal cleansing cannot be neglected. If the decimating abyss messes up our own, that would really be a joke. Everyone present nodded in unison, a longtime elder saying, the decimating abyss will also not go to the extent of making enemies everywhere. If they want to succeed, they will also have to concentrate their strength. Even so, we still have to dig out all the nails of our clan, Shunli said mildly. How can we let sand be in our eyes? Everyone replied in unison, yes, oh Lord. In Broad Creed Mountain, Yen Zhaoge returned to his lodgings, Ahu beside him beaming with joy as he was incomparably happy for Yen Di. Right, Ahu, how is the thing that I asked you to find earlier? Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin, pondering as he asked. Awakening, Ahu answered, Young master, it's already gathered. I'll go get it for you. Saying thus, he brought over a few things. Other than a bow, there were also quite a few materials. To be continued. Chapter 264. After returning from the Sand region, Yen Zhaoge had asked Ahu to search for some things. Currently, the manpower and resources that Yen Zhaoge could mobilize had long since been no longer limited to the Yen family. The resources of the entire Broad Creed Mountain could also be mobilized by Yen Zhaoge in large amounts. Now, Yen Zhaoge's work could also be considered to be the center of attention, with quite a few people staring at him. Not mentioning the numerous major matters that he had previously accomplished, just the fact that Yen Zhaoge was a martial scholar and a disciple of the younger generation, being able to freely use most of the resources of Broad Creed Mountain, such authority was enough to draw the attention of the outside world, wanting to see what exactly he could do. After all, in all under the heavens, how many youngsters could possess such authority? It was not without reason that others were increasingly disregarding Yen Zhaoge's age and seniority. His many great deeds and the authority he possessed had long since been incomparable to those of the same age and generation. Many people were staring at his every move, trying to analyze it. Yen Zhaoge was well aware of this. Therefore, he had instructed Ahu to search for more than 10 times the number and variety of things that he truly needed. This was all for the purpose of confusing and concealing himself. The few things that Ahu had handed over were what he truly wanted. The other things might not be useless, but they were not urgently needed and could only be temporarily kept in reserve. Holding that longbow, Yen Zhaoge lightly pulled the bowstring, drawing it back, able to feel the abundant spiritual qi and power within. However, wanting to wield this treasure as he pleased, Yen Zhaoge currently still lacked the strength to wield its power, because this was a mid-grade spirit artifact. Wanting to completely wield the power of a mid-grade spirit artifact, one had to be an essence spirit martial grandmaster. Spirit vessel martial grandmasters could only wield a portion of its power, while martial scholars could not. Yen Zhaoge plucked at the bowstring, pondering as he asked, unable to find a high-grade spirit artifact bow. Ahu scratched his head. Young master, currently, the only high-grade spirit artifact bows that we know of are the Sacred Sun Clan's Shooting Sun and the Heavenly Thunder Hall's Heaven Shocker. Even if Jade Sea City, Turbid Wave Pavilion, and Infinite Boundless Mountain have them, we can also try to borrow them. If Shooting Sun and Heaven Shocker, I really can't think of anything else. If you want to steal or rob, my cultivation is still too low. Ahu looked at the bow in Yen Zhaoge's hands. In the lands of the Heaven Domain, the best bow that can be found is this Sky Speed. I also know this. Yen Zhaoge nodded. A mid-grade spirit artifact is actually already sufficient. It's just that the better the bow, the higher the chance. While he was temporarily unable to wield this high-speed bow, Yen Zhaoge was not in a rush as he placed it by the side, beginning to inspect other things. After inspecting all of the items one by one, Yen Zhaoge nodded in satisfaction. Very good. It is only because of Broad Creed Mountain's great assets that they could prepare everything within such a short period of time. I'm afraid it won't be that fast. Yen Zhaoge took out his internal crystal furnace once more. From within, a low, stable sound could be heard, clearly still in the midst of circulating. Lightly tapping on the internal crystal furnace, Yen Zhaoge opened the lid of the furnace, brilliant light instantly gushing out. Yen Zhaoge smiled slightly, patting the body of the furnace. Instantly, a purple light flew out from within, landing before Yen Zhaoge. It was precisely a dark green bamboo branch. Originally placed within the internal crystal furnace, along with this bamboo branch, were the incinerating light sword, the vapor sealing sword, and the purple gold thunder sword, the three low-grade spirit artifacts. Now, they had long since disappeared. Meanwhile, that bamboo branch actually seemed to have grown quite a bit, the bamboo segment having now become two segments. Yen Zhaoge reached out and grasped the bamboo branch. He first kept it, then guided it with his aura chi, the many treasures that he had inspected earlier all falling into the internal crystal furnace together. Next, Yen Zhaoge closed the lid of the furnace, his hands simultaneously striking the two sides of the internal crystal furnace. The surface of the internal crystal furnace glowed with a myriad of colors. It began circulating mightily once more. Yen Zhaoge's gaze was calm as he silently gazed at the internal crystal furnace, his hands rhythmically striking the internal crystal furnace with a strange rhythm, causing the circulation of this furnace to always be under his control, moving according to his thoughts. Time slowly passed. Regardless of whether the outside world was turbulent or turbulent, Yen Zhaoge remained within his own world, quietly controlling the internal crystal furnace to concoct the things that he wanted. It had already been some time since Yen Di had temporarily assumed the position of chief. After Broadcreed Mountain had passed smoothly and everything had stabilized on the right track, the old chief, Yuan Zhengfeng, had finally officially decided to enter secluded cultivation. With Yuan Zhengfeng in seclusion, the matters on Yen Zhaoge's hands finally came to an end for the time being. The internal crystal furnace temporarily halted its circulation, its lid opening. Chapter 265. After watching Yuan Zhengfeng enter seclusion, Yen Zhaoge left, exiting Converting Lake Peak and returning to his lodgings. Along the way, he saw a figure standing there, seemingly waiting for him. Yen Zhaoge greeted him. "Senior Apprentice Brother Su, you've finally returned? Has Suzhou City completed the handover?" That person was tall and sturdy, and his appearance was straightforward and upright. It was precisely Xue Fei. "Brother Fei," who greeted them as well. Xue Fei nodded. "Zhaoge, Hu Ting." Yen Zhaoge led Xue Fei to his lodgings. After they had taken their seats, Xue Fei went straight to the point and asked, "Zhaoge, although you are currently still a martial scholar, you have already broken through two great devilish formations and have also interacted with many fallen practitioners. Currently, in our sect, I feel that you should be one of the few people who understand the 9 underworld's demons, the demon domain, the decimating abyss, and the fallen evils the most. The reason I came here today is because I have something to ask of you." Hearing this, Yen Zhaoge fell silent for a moment before saying, "Does Senior Apprentice Brother Su want to ask, is it possible for fallen practitioners to regain their human form?" Xue Fei nodded slowly. "Perhaps it's an extravagant hope, but if there's a glimmer of hope, and that person is really Senior Brother Su, then I want to give it a try." Yen Zhaoge also didn't play dumb with Su Fei. "Senior Apprentice Brother Su, to be honest, I also hope that Senior Apprentice Brother Shi Songtao will be able to realize his error and mend his ways. However, it's a pity that from what I currently know, after a person comes into contact with devilish qi and completes their internal and external connection, their thoughts manifesting externally into reality, completely falling to the dark side, there is no way for them to regain their human form. I am not omniscient and omnipotent. I dare not say that there is no way, but based on what I know, I have no way. The two had a close relationship, and Xue Fei was a straightforward person who was also sufficiently resolute in his beliefs. Therefore, Yen Zhaoge was not afraid of telling him everything in a straightforward manner. Sure enough, when Xue Fei heard it, he sighed softly. "I'm just holding on to a sliver of hope. But if it's you, Zhaoge, there's nothing you can do. I'm afraid it's really hard to say, Yen Zhaoge said softly. For all those who have fallen to the dark side, the one who makes the final decision is always themselves. After falling to the dark side, humans are no longer humans. Instead, it's the netherworld evil demons, another kind of existence in this world, or you could say that they're another kind of life form. Although the fallen evils have memories of their previous lives, the 9 netherworld evil demons kill people just like how we slaughter cows, goats, chickens, and ducks. To them, the feeling is more or less the same. The memories of their past lives are more like the memories of their past lives after reincarnation. Yen Zhaoge shook his head. If possible, we all hope that senior apprentice brother Shi can turn back, but is he himself willing? Of course. All of this is based on the premise that the masked man who tried to assassinate us is really senior brother Shi. Hearing Yen Zhaoge's question, Xue Fei silently removed the wineskin by his waist. Instead of drinking heartily like he used to, he sipped slowly. He said slowly, "I understand what you're saying." Yen Zhaoge was silent for a moment before asking, "We don't know whether senior apprentice brother Shi currently has any lives on his hands. Even if the people he killed weren't from our sect, you and I both know that as humans, killing is a very important thing. It's completely different from killing people as demons of the netherworld." Yen Zhaoge looked at Xue Fei. In these few exchanges, we can feel that assassin. Although he doesn't use the martial arts he's most proficient in, his killing intent and killing intent are all biting cold to the extreme. He really wants to put us to death. Although we currently don't have a way to let the fallen evils regain their human form, it's not that we can't first capture him alive, then slowly find a way. But you and I both know the difficulty of killing an opponent is completely different from the difficulty of capturing one alive, especially when it's an opponent who may not be weaker than us. When 2 people of similar strength fight, victory or defeat, life or death, is often decided in an instant. Hearing this, Xue Fei didn't say anything, but also nodded. Yen Zhaoge continued, "I have the stone pillar from the great western desert to suppress my opponent, so I have confidence in one-on-one. But what about you, senior apprentice brother Xue? Being able to capture him alive would naturally be the best, but are you prepared to risk being killed by him and still preserve his life?" Xue Fei's gaze didn't fluctuate in the slightest as he calmly said, "That's right. If this person really is senior apprentice brother Shi, this is what I plan to do. If he really has already committed too many crimes, I won't be biased. But before that, I have to try hard." Xue Fei stood up, saying, "I have no parents and was raised by master from young, growing up together with brother Tao. Even if I have to take the risk myself, I don't care." Yen Zhaoge sighed, similarly standing up. "Right now, we still can't confirm that masked person's identity. If we meet again, it's best if you don't treat him as senior apprentice brother Shi, or it will be very dangerous. If he doesn't use his original martial arts, only using the dark light killing art, he won't be your match. However, if you show mercy in all aspects, the one who will lose will very likely be you. The dark light killing art, this martial art, possesses great explosive power, and is also a martial art that purely kills people." Xue Fei nodded. "Rest assured, I will pay attention to the bare minimum. If someone wants to impersonate senior apprentice brother Shi and scheme against me, I will take good care of him." Yen Zhaoge said, "If you think this way, that's naturally for the best." After sending Xue Fei out, Yen Zhaoge raised his head and looked at the sunlight that penetrated through the leaves of the forest, saying, "With Grand Master in secluded cultivation, this time, hidden tides are surging in the outside world. If our clan passes through this, the situation will be even better. But this bottleneck will not be easy to pass." Xue Fei also halted, standing alongside Yen Zhaoge, similarly raising his head and appraising the mottled sunlight. "While Grand Master's chances of success are uncertain, And if he fails, there is still the risk of him perishing. The Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall will not just wait for the results calmly. Especially if the Sacred Sun Clan's Huang Guanglia leaves seclusion successfully, the Sacred Sun Clan will definitely directly step into the Heaven Domain, heading straight for our clan. The Decimating Abyss may also make a comeback. Others aside, at the very least, they still have the Scaly Dragon King, Sima Chue, a late Essence Talisman martial grandmaster expert. Also, Xue Fei frowned. His status was similarly already not something that ordinary disciples of the same generation could compare to. Perhaps his authority in mobilizing resources and manpower could not compare to Yan Zhaoga's, but he could also come into contact with much information that ordinary martial practitioners of the same generation did not know. Yan Zhaoga directly continued his words. Also, there is still one person that we have to guard against. Exchanging glances, the two said simultaneously, the Devil Saint, Yuan Tian, one of the current 6 martial saints of the 8 extremities world, a peak existence amongst solitary practitioners. The Devil Saint Yuan Tian just so happened to be related to the Decimating Abyss and the 9 underworlds. After the incident at Clear Concealed Lake, having prevented the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler from reinforcing Clear Concealed Lake, Yuan Tian had disappeared without a trace, but no one dared to think that this was a coincidence. This person's destructive power was far from what the likes of Sima Chue could compare to. Or perhaps it should be said that up till now, all the known Decimating Abyss martial practitioners added together would still not be enough to be beaten by this person with a single hand. To be continued. Chapter 266. Leader, member, ally. Or perhaps he helped out of a favor. Su Fei asked. It could even be that Yuan Tian did it on his own accord. However, no matter what the reason is, we must be on guard against Yuan Tian. We must include him in our upcoming plans. Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoga nodded. The Devil Saint Yuan Tian is indeed a problem. We need to be wary of him. Su Fei said, Zhaoga, you have to be careful from now on. His gaze fell on the devilish mark on Yan Zhaoga's left hand. After all, Master's cultivation base is rather high. If the enemy wants to reopen the Great 9 Underworld's door in the Sand region, it is very likely that they will target you. Yan Zhaoga said straightforwardly, even if it isn't for the Great 9 Underworld's door, they might still target me. If I were to die, the pressure of the devilish mark would all fall onto eldest apprentice uncle. This way, eldest apprentice uncle's attention would be drawn further, making it easier for them to do other things. Xue Fei's expression was a little solemn. Yes, he was an open-minded and forthright person, but apart from being open and candid, he was also relatively steady. He didn't like to speculate, so there were some things that were difficult to say out loud. Yan Zhaoga, however, immediately understood the meaning behind Su Fei's words. If there were still people of Broad Creed Mountain who were spies of the Decimating Abyss, especially experts whose cultivation bases were rather high, if they intended to assassinate Yan Zhaoga, it would be extremely covert, hard to guard against. After all, he couldn't look at everyone with suspicion or completely isolate Yan Zhaoga. He could only rely on Yan Zhaoga's own vigilance for everything. Yan Zhaoga patted Su Fei's shoulder. Relax, senior apprentice brother Su. I will take care of myself. Saying thus, Yan Zhaoga laughed. While I don't really like it, it seems like there are always such things that come looking for me. It looks like I was born to be a bait, with the clan just being able to create a circle around me, ambushing and killing spies of the Decimating Abyss. Xue Fei said sternly, That's true, but you'll be taking a huge risk. I know, Zhaoga. You have a strange treasure on you, and you are not afraid of a spirit vessel martial grandmaster. But what if an essence spirit martial grandmaster suddenly attacks after getting close? You might not be able to fend off the reinforcements of the experts lying in ambush. Xue Fei paused for a moment. If it was an essence talisman martial grandmaster, he wouldn't even have the time to react. Yen Zhaoga smiled. Senior Apprentice Brother Su, you are right. It is indeed like this. But now, the enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. There are some things that can't be helped. However, I won't joke around with my life. Although I don't plan to be quarantined, in the near future, I want to reduce my personal contact with the higher-ups of the sect. Except for a limited number of people, the rest of the elders can only apologize first. I believe they will understand. Shuefei nodded. It's good that you know what to do. After sending Su Fei off, Yen Zhaoga did not directly return to the secluded room, as he instead strolled leisurely outside. Traversing the forest, Yen Zhaoga came before a waterfall, quietly looking at the flowing water. After who knew how long, when Yen Zhaoga was about to turn and leave, suddenly his heart skipped a beat. He looked in a certain direction and saw a figure appear in the distance. It was a woman. The woman's appearance was beautiful, but her temperament was somewhat cold. It was Sikong Qing. Sikong Qing only discovered Yen Zhaoga after getting close. As she looked over, she could only feel that Yen Zhaoga seemed to have merged as one with his surroundings, making it hard for her to detect him. Senior Apprentice Brother, Yen, Sikong Qing first bowed. Yen Zhaoga nodded. Junior Apprentice Sister Sikong. It's been a long time. Congratulations on your rapid progress in cultivation. Compared to the time of the Qingzi Lake Alliance meet, Sikong Qing's current cultivation had already stepped from the inner aura stage to the outer aura stage. Yen Zhaoga heard the sound of her blood flowing. It was as heavy as lead mercury, but it didn't seem sluggish at all. Are you currently at the peak of the early outer aura stage, or have you already stepped into the mid-outer aura stage, the stage of condensing qi into weapons? Yen Zhaoga asked interestedly. Sikong Qing replied, at the middle stage of outer aura, one can already condense qi into weapons. As she spoke, she stretched out her hand. His upstanding qi transformed into a blade and floated beside his body. Shockingly, he was already at the middle stage of the physical invulnerability stage. Yen Zhaoga rubbed his palms together, sighing, it hasn't even been a year since we returned from Clear Concealed Lake, and you've already advanced by leaps and bounds to this stage. You really are a heaven-blessed genius. Sikong Qing shook her head. Compared to Senior Apprentice Brother Yan's speed of advancing from the late inner aura stage to the early outer aura stage, and then to the mid-outer aura stage, it is much slower. The corners of Yen Zhaoga's mouth arched slightly, but he did not speak. Sikong Qing's situation was very special, very abnormal. Before she had become a martial scholar, while she had also been extremely outstanding, it hadn't been especially exaggerated, basically being at the average standard of direct disciples of sacred grounds. That year, after becoming a martial scholar, her speed of improvement had been so swift that even Yen Zhaoga had been taken aback. Amongst those of the same generation, her speed of improvement had surpassed that of the original owner of Yen Zhaoga's body, Luwen Su Fei. Only Feng Yunsheng had been slightly faster than her. However, Feng Yunsheng's situation had originally been special, with the extreme yin scripture, the yin-yang coexisting technique, as well as the recent stimulation of the cold marrow needles. She had been working on multiple fronts. Ying Longtu's improvement had been even more exaggerated, but because of his Big Dipper body, it had been especially convenient for Han Long to enter the body refinement realm. Having reached the martial scholar realm, while his improvement speed would also be very fast, he still might not be stronger than Sikong Qing. Everyone was curious, and Yen Zhaoga was the same. However, he was just curious, not having any thoughts of digging deeper. After all, Sikong Qing wasn't an enemy. Looking at Yen Zhaoga, Sikong Qing's gaze was a little strange. Yen Zhaoga touched his face. What? Are there flowers growing on my face? Sikong Qing shook her head. No, It's just that looking at you, senior apprentice brother Yen, I thought of some things. Yen Zhaoga's interest was piqued. Oh, what things? Earlier at Clear Concealed Lake, I personally experienced it. This time at Yunwu County in the San region. While I wasn't there, I also heard about it. Sikong Qing said, Senior apprentice brother Yen, you have done something that many martial grandmaster experts are unable to do. From ancient times till now, whether or not you are the strongest martial scholar, I don't dare to say for sure, but I'm afraid that you are the martial scholar with the greatest ability. Yen Zhaoga smiled slightly. So? Sikong Qing said, So, I feel that I have to make some changes. You doubt yourself? Yen Zhaoga appraised her all over. Doubting whether your heart, having always been completely undistracted, not dabbling in formations, artifact forging, and the like, instead wholeheartedly cultivating in the martial arts. Is this path correct? Sikong Qing said calmly, No, I have never wavered. I firmly believe that my path is not wrong. While at Clear Concealed Lake, as well as now when a storm is about to descend upon our clan, I feel my own insignificance and powerlessness. I have never doubted my own choice. My insignificance and powerlessness are only because I am currently too weak. Looking at Sikong Qing, Yen Zhaoga saw that her eyes were glowing slightly, a rare sight. The girl continued, I feel that the environment that I have been in all along has been too comfortable. Under the guidance and protection of the clan, while I have also cultivated diligently, while I believe that I have been diligent in my cultivation, it has still been too comfortable. Sikong Qing looked straight at Yen Zhaoga. I want to go out adventuring for a bit, going a little further, seeing more things, tempering myself, life and death up to the heavens. Chapter 267. Looking at Sikong Qing, Yen Zhaoga smiled. Yen Zhaoga did not object to Sikong Qing's thoughts. After all, this was a world that belonged to martial artists. When a person had the ability to push forward unparalleled, everything else paled in comparison. The simplest example was Devil Saint Yuan Tian. He did not need to use any other means. Just by standing there, he was a deterrent. In the current eight extremities world, a martial saint had the ability and capital to ignore most of the rules. Most of the time, only existences of the same level could restrict him. As Sikong Qing had said, she felt powerless, mostly because her current cultivation was still low. In fact, this couldn't be blamed on her. Compared to her age and cultivation time, she had already surpassed countless people. It was just that she was involved in a situation that her current cultivation and strength couldn't handle. Most of the tragedies in this world originated from this. From a certain perspective, Yen Zhaoga was also in the same situation, just that he had other countermeasures. It was also precisely because he was always able to solve problems that, logically speaking, he was unable to solve with his current level of cultivation, that Yen Zhaoga had his current position and reputation. Looking at Sikong Qing, Yen Zhaoga said, Before this, when you were out tempering yourselves, while there were people who brought you along, on the whole, as long as it was not a life or death situation, they would not care about you. The clan also considers the effects of tempering. Sikong Qing said, Even so, we always have feelings of dependence in our hearts. She looked at the distant waterfall, listening to the rumbling sound of water. For senior martial sister Feng to have what she has today, those 2 years of wandering alone and being chased by others were very important. Although that's not a good thing. Yen Zhaoga knew that Sikong Qing's words were unrelated to Feng Yunxing's extreme yin physique, as well as the cold marrow needles and the extreme yin scripture. She was referring to Feng Yunxing's strength, which far surpassed her peers. On one hand, it was talent, and on the other hand, it was experience. Feng Yunxing's combat ability far surpassed most martial artists of the same realm. As far as Yen Zhaoga knew, Feng Yunsheng and Sikong Qing were both disciples of Fu Anshu. They would often spar with each other. This pair of apprentice sisters was also very interesting. Feng Yunsheng addressed Si Kongqing as senior apprentice sister Sikong, while Si Kongqing addressed Feng Yunsheng as senior apprentice sister Feng. Of course, there was no conflict between the two. He didn't mean to oppose her at all. Because Feng Yunsheng entered the sect late, she respectfully addressed Si Kongqing, who was younger than her, as senior apprentice sister. And the reason why Si Kongqing addressed Feng Yunsheng as senior sister was very simple. There was no enmity between fellow disciples, so there was no need for them to fight to the death. After exchanging blows, Feng Yunsheng had always been slightly superior. If it was a fight to the death, Feng Yunsheng would have an even greater advantage. Not in the mood to interfere with Si Kongqing's decision, Yan Zhaoge smiled. Having such thoughts, you are also wholeheartedly devoted to the martial Tao, striving to improve yourself. I naturally have no objections to this. While it might be hard to say for others, it might indeed be a feasible path for you. However, first, it's best if you ask for Uncle Master Fu's opinion before making a decision. Second, even if you want to leave, it's better to wait for Grandmaster to come out of seclusion. It's better to wait until the dust has settled. It's been a troubled time, recently. Hearing this, Si Kongqing nodded, saying, Senior apprentice brother Yan's words are reasonable. I understand. She cupped her hands towards Yan Zhaoge, then took her leave. Yan Zhaoge looked at Si Kongqing's back. He sighed, 100 vying barges. Who will emerge victorious? Shaking his head, Yan Zhaoge returned to his residence. Speaking of diligently cultivating and improving one's strength and realm, Yan Zhaoge's desire to improve had never been weaker than others. While he had been enjoying limitless glory recently, having accomplished great things that many martial scholars had been unable to accomplish, Yan Zhaoge's urgent desire to raise his strength was even stronger than most people's. Returning to his secluded room, Yan Zhaoge sat in the meditative position, the aura qi within his body ceaselessly regulating his breathing. A spiritual light shot into the skies from the top of his head. Raising his left hand, Yan Zhaoge examined the devilish mark on the back of his hand, unceasingly analyzing the concept contained within. Within his dantian, the chaotic qi mass was still hazy. After regulating his breathing for a moment, the spiritual light above his head gradually retracted as he took out an item. It was a piece of stone that resembled a mirror, not being transparent, as it looked completely gray. However, as Yan Zhaoge's gaze fell on it, radiance seemed to vaguely flicker on its surface, reflecting Yan Zhaoge's face. It was precisely the life-illuminating immortal stone that Yan Zhaoge had previously obtained from the foreign dimension that loose practitioner he had resided in. This treasure's usual use, and one that most people of pre-Great Calamity times knew of, was to reflect the circulation paths of one's aura qi as one cultivated, displaying it for others to see. In other words, its main use was actually to guide disciples and teach. When the seniors of the clan cultivated, they would use the life-illuminating immortal stone to display the circulation paths of their aura qi, demonstrating it for the juniors, making it easier for them to observe and comprehend. However, Yan Zhaoge knew that this treasure still had other uses. He extended his finger, lightly swiping it on the surface of the life-illuminating immortal stone, drawing a series of patterns. Different scenes of light instantly appeared on the surface of the stone. The originally gray stone actually gradually turned clear and transparent at this moment, resembling a crystal, resembling the true surface of a mirror. The spiritual light above Yan Zhaoge's head rose once more, just that an image also arose within the spiritual light, looking exceptionally unique. In the following days, Yan Zhaoge began his days of secluded cultivation once more. Every day, he would either cultivate unceasingly accumulating in preparation for his breakthrough into the martial grandmaster realm, or analyze the devilish mark on the back of his left hand, or forge devil-shattering arrows with the internal crystal furnace. Time passed quickly, and some time had already passed since the old clan chief Yuan Zhengfeng had entered secluded cultivation. Broad Creed Mountain operated as per usual internally, Yendi already fully immersed in his role. Meanwhile, in the outside world, whether it was the Sacred Sun clan or the Decimating Abyss, they also temporarily did not make any major movements. At this moment, it was as though they were all united, eagerly anticipating Yuan Zhengfeng's success in his cultivation, successfully stepping into the martial saint realm and emerging from seclusion. However, whether it was Yan Zhaoge or Yendi and the others, they all knew that all this was merely an illusion, just the final calm before the storm. One day, as Yan Zhaoge sat quietly within his room, the surface of the life-illuminating immortal stone that was clear as crystal before him already riddled with cracks, resembling dense spiderwebs. Yan Zhaoge's expression was calm as he extended his finger, tapping on the life-illuminating immortal stone. The crystalline stone soundlessly shattered, turning into fine powder before turning into dust, dissipating within the air as though it had never existed in the first place. Meanwhile, the spiritual light above Yan Zhaoge's head erupted with light. Radiance seemed to be emitted from every single acupoint of his entire body. Bathed completely within the radiance, Yan Zhaoge's illusory aura-chi seemed to have transformed into actual auspicious clouds, supporting his body. The bright spiritual light above his head now began slowly retracting from the top of Yan Zhaoge's head, while the light emitted from his entire body grew even denser. Today, Yan Zhaoge officially advanced towards the martial grandmaster realm. To be continued. Chapter 268. Yan Zhaoge's entire body shone with radiance, his aura-chi roiling as he looked like he was surrounded by auspicious clouds. As the acupoints of Yan Zhaoge's entire body pulsed, a shocking force emanated from within his body. Gradually, there seemed to be true dragons moving up and down in the auspicious clouds. The true dragons could only see their heads, but not their tails. They let out resounding and tyrannical dragon roars in unison. At this moment, the two auras of cold and heat were no longer distinct. One could only feel a vigorous power. Yan Zhaoge's closed eyes now opened. At this moment, the radiance of the auspicious clouds that flickered with radiance around him gradually receded. The dragon-like astral energy also calmed down. The dazzling auspicious clouds gradually became quiet, and in the end, they seemed muddle-headed. Yan Zhaoge's current location was vaguely hard to describe. He was clearly there, yet it seemed impossible to ascertain his position, unable to distinguish between front and back, unable to distinguish between up and down. Time and space seemed to have lost their meaning at this moment, leaving only chaos. Currently, the mass of qi surrounding Yan Zhaoge's body was shockingly the same as the scene within his Dantian's qi ocean. At this moment, the spiritual light above Yan Zhaoge's head had completely vanished, and the light within his eyes had also been completely retracted, looking completely ordinary and unremarkable, restrained and warm. The chaotic qi mass formed of his aura-chi also gradually returned to the acupoints of Yan Zhaoge's entire body. Standing up from the ground, Yan Zhaoge resembled a famed, peerless sword that had revealed its sharpness to the fullest, sheathed at this moment. Not only was the edge of the sword not blunt, but it was even sharper. It was just that it was temporarily restrained, and would only be revealed again when there was a need, erupting with even greater power than before. Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly, only feeling that his aura-chi that was rich with spirituality was even more restrained, even more condensed, even more vigorous, even heavier. He vaguely felt that he had gained a deeper understanding of martial arts cultivation, his own understanding, his own learning, combining it with the martial arts he cultivated. A path to sublimation was already faintly discernible before his eyes. Yen Zhaoge knew that it was his true martial soul. Now that he had the foundation to nurture it, all he had to do was continue to accumulate and analyze it before he could finally comprehend it and sublimate it. And at this moment, he had already successfully stepped into the great Grandmaster realm. It was as if a door had been opened in front of him, and he had stepped into a whole new world. Great Grandmaster realm. Spirit nurturing initial stage. The spirituality of the stellar energy returned to its original state, and the fist intent heaven and earth turned from illusory to real, beginning to form spirit soil. This was precisely where the foundation of a martial grandmaster lay. The spirit soil formed of Yen Zhaoge's fist intense aura qi resembled the chaos within his Dantian's qi ocean, profound and indiscernible. Yen Zhaoge adjusted his condition for a moment, then got up, pushed open the door, and walked out. Waiting outside, Ahu immediately saw that spiritual light that connected to the heavens above Yen Zhaoge's head vanish. According to Yen Zhaoge's personality, other than a few special circumstances, he would never retract the spiritual light above his head. At this moment, the light disappeared. Carefully appraising Yen Zhaoge, Ahu felt the acupoints of Yen Zhaoge's entire body pulsating, resembling a true divinity, communicating with the two heavens and earth within and outside his body. Ahu was someone who had experienced it once. He was slightly startled at first, then overjoyed. "Young master, you've successfully become a great grandmaster." Yen Zhaoge smiled. "A new beginning, a new beginning." Ahu praised sincerely. "Young master, you almost broke the record of the clan head as the youngest great master. If we start counting from the beginning of the physical invulnerability stage to the grandmaster stage, you used even less time than the clan head." Usually when Ahu said such words, he would still more or less have the intention of bootlicking. But at this moment, he was filled with admiration from the bottom of his heart, only feeling that it was inconceivable. Don't look at how the big guy was usually very carefree, following by Yen Zhaoge's side like a lackey. However, this was only when he was facing Yen Zhaoge and Yen Di. Only then would he be like this. When facing others, while he was all smiles on the surface, most of the time, he, Ahu, Huang Hutting, actually also had his own pride within his heart, resembling a ferocious tiger of Mount Buddha. However, seeing Yen Zhaoge at such a young age, having already stepped into the martial grandmaster realm, Ahu also felt that it was too amazing. This had nothing to do with Yen Zhaoge's identity at all, but was purely an admiration of Yen Zhaoge's individual excellence. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Father becoming a martial grandmaster at the age of 22, wanting to break this record is not easy. Currently, of those that are known, we can only see if Han Long has any hope. He looked at Ahu. "Right from the looks of it, you were specially waiting for me here. Is there something important?" Ahu nodded, grinning, revealing a mouthful of white teeth that vaguely seemed a little savage. "Young master, things seem to be a little unstable at home." Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. "Oh, home." The home that Ahu spoke of was naturally not the Thunder Domain's Zhao region's Yen family, but the Central Heaven region's Yen family that Yen Zhaoge had come from. After having split off from the Thunder Domain's Zhao region that year, in order to avoid the persecution of the Thunder Domain's Zhao region's Yen family, they had traveled a long and arduous journey to the Heaven Domain, finally settling down in the Heaven Domain once more. The Central Heaven region was where Broad Creed Mountain was. Here, by convention, other first-rate powers were not permitted to exist. Wanting to develop in the Central Heaven region, they were at most some second-rate powers. The only two exceptions were the Yen family of Yen Zhaoge and Yen Di, as well as the Zhang family of the Grand Elder Zhang. Because of Yen Di and Elder Zhang, These two families had settled down in the Central Heaven region. However, comparatively speaking, they were both very low-key. Following Yen Di's rise in cultivation and position, the Central Heaven region's Yen family had also become a famed family of the Eight Extremities world. Of course, the Thunder Domain's Zhao region's Yen family refused to acknowledge this. However, the Central Heaven region's Yen family also didn't care whether they acknowledged it or not. The current patriarch of the Yen family was Yen Zhaoga's father, Yen Di. However, Yen Di spent most of his time at Broad Creed Mountain. His status as an elder of Broad Creed Mountain was also far greater than that of the Yen family's patriarch. Yen Di was the head of the Yen family. However, most of the family's daily affairs were handled by the elders, who then reported them to Yen Di. "How is the family unstable?" Yen Zhaoga asked, looking like he was smiling whilst also not. Whose expression was savage as he answered, "Some people are gossiping, suspecting that family head is not the old master's biological son, also speaking rudely towards young master, even insulting madam in the process." Yen Zhaoga chuckled coldly, not getting angry. "This is interesting. Seeing that father's position in the sacred ground, Broad Creed Mountain, with hopes of ascending to the position of clan chief, they don't want to hug his thigh tightly, instead causing trouble at this time. First, not mentioning how trustworthy those filthy rumors are. Even if they are true, the sensible choice at this time would be to stand on father's side, even helping to destroy the evidence and quell the dispute. The stronger father, the more stable his position, and the more stable the position of the Central Heaven region's Yen family, rising with the tide, the more benefits there are. Jumping out at this time to cause trouble, don't you think that they are stupid?" Yen Zhaoga muttered to himself. "They are not stupid in the slightest. That means that there is another reason. Father is temporarily acting as Broad Creed Mountain's clan chief, having to attend to numerous affairs every day, unable to find the time. However, this kind of internal fire, he can't just ignore it. His own family is not at peace. How can he manage Broad Creed Mountain? It is also not suitable for others to suppress it. As the patriarch's son, it would be most suitable for me to return home to handle it." Yen Zhaoga smiled coldly, gazing into the distance. Indeed, the calm before the storm has ended. The other side is preparing to make a move. Chapter 269. Who asked? It was their trap, and their target from the start was you, young master, trying to kill young master? Yen Zhaoga said mildly. "This is a matter of the Yen family, and it is not suitable for others to deal with it. Father cannot deal with it, so only I can return." Ahu looked at Yen Zhaoga. "Young master, then you return?" Yen Zhaoga said nonchalantly. "Of course I have to return." After packing up the things on hand, Yen Zhaoga walked to a courtyard by the side, where Pan Pan was currently resting. Seeing Yen Zhaoga arrive, Pan Pan instantly became spirited, no longer as lazy as before. Yen Zhaoga patted his big head, saying to Ahu, "Father already knows the whole story, right?" Ahu answered, "Yes, family head already knows." Yen Zhaoga nodded. "Good, then it is fine. Father will naturally make the arrangements. Let's go home." Descending Earth Peak, exiting the clan, Yen Zhaoga flipped and sat on Pan Pan, Ahu doing the same. The chubby and clumsy Pan Pan, who looked charmingly naive, ran as fast as lightning, moving far away in an instant. Yen Zhaoga's figure jolted along with Pan Pan's running, gazing into the distance, seemingly pondering something. He lowered his head to look at the back of his left hand. The devilish mark on it was already extremely dim. Normally speaking, it would not be long before it completely dissipated. Ahu glanced at it. "Young master, do you think the ones causing trouble this time are the decimating Abyss or the Sacred Sun clan?" Yen Zhaoga said, the possibility of it being the decimating abyss is a little higher. The Sacred Sun clan is firstly waiting for Huang Guanglia to leave seclusion, and secondly, their corrosive abilities are not that strong. However, Yan Zhaoga's gaze was a little deep and distant. Whether or not they are aware of it is another matter altogether. The Sacred Sun clan might just be waiting for the decimating abyss, and us to both suffer heavy losses. That way, even if Huang Guanglia does not leave seclusion, they would still have a chance to take advantage of it. Ahu pulled back the corners of his lips. The Sacred Sun clan and the decimating abyss shouldn't be joining hands, right? Yan Zhaoga said. They shouldn't be joining hands, since the Sacred Sun clan shouldn't be able to do such a thing where they have no bottom line at all. Still, they might be thinking of reaping the benefits of the third, to get us all in one fell swoop. Through the matter of the wind domain, I've figured out a few things. In the current world, not mentioning what their understanding of the 9 underworlds is, the one who has the deepest understanding of the decimating abyss might be the Sacred Sun clan. Yan Zhaoga shook his head. Both sides are trying to divide and rope in the remnant descendants of Black Nightmare Mountain, but the remnant descendants of Black Nightmare Mountain have also unknowingly become a channel for both sides to understand each other. Ahu scratched the back of his head. Are they all trying to use each other to kill each other? Yan Zhaoga said, It is just my guess. There is no basis for it. The foundation of the Central Heaven region's Yen family was established in the southwest of the Central Heaven region's Yunjin County, also some distance away from Broad Creed Mountain. Riding on Pan Pan, Yan Zhaoga had also experienced a long journey before finally arriving. After entering the boundaries of Yunjin County, there was already someone waiting there. It was a middle-aged man with the cultivation of a spirit vessel intermediate martial grandmaster. His name was Yen. Seeing Yen Zhaoga did not bother with formalities. Uncle what's the matter? Not long ago, during a family banquet, fourth uncle suddenly took out a letter, saying that it was left behind by eldest uncle when he was still alive. He also did not bother with formalities as he led Yan Zhaoga forward, saying as they walked, the contents of the letter, it says that Brother D is not eldest uncle's biological son, instead having been adopted when he was young, his origins unknown. Yan Zhaoga's expression did not change as he listened calmly. The eldest uncle that he spoke of was Yendi's father, Yan Zhaoga's grandfather. On their way to the heaven domain, they had met with danger and perished at that time. Yendi had still been young, and there had not been a person called Yan Zhaoga in this world. Afterwards, Yan Zhaoga's great-grandfather, Yendi's grandfather, had brought their entire family to settle down in the heaven domain. Afterwards, Yendi had entered Broad Creed Mountain, rising up step by step, also bringing the Central Heaven region's Yen family along with him to rise up. After the previous family head, Yendi's grandfather, had passed away, the position of family head had not been passed to his descendants, instead being directly taken up by his grandson, Yendi. Now, Yendi's third uncle, fourth uncle, and seventh uncle were all still alive. Usually, when Yendi was at Broad Creed Mountain, the daily affairs of the Central Heaven region's Yen family were discussed and settled by these few elders. He sighed. I don't know what fourth uncle was thinking, causing such a huge commotion that everyone knew about it, even insisting on investigating this matter. Unable to suppress him, third uncle and seventh uncle could only inform Brother D. Of the few elders, Yan Zhaoga's third granduncle and fourth granduncle were both essence spirit martial grandmasters, while seventh granduncle was of the spirit vessel stage. Father is currently temporarily acting as chief, having many matters to attend to, unable to leave. Yan Zhaoga said simply, Therefore, I have returned this time to see what exactly is going on. While Yan Zhaoga was young, he was Yendi's son of the first wife. At the same time, He was currently renowned throughout the entire Eight Extremities world, his position in the sacred ground Broad Creed Mountain not being low. Even the elders of the family were unable to easily suppress him based on seniority. Yen said, "It's good that you were able to return. At the very least, let the situation calm down first, not continuing to escalate." As they arrived at the ancestral mansion, before they had even entered the courtyard, they could already feel the tense atmosphere. Raising his head and looking over, Yen Zhaoge saw the winds and clouds surging in the air above the ancestral mansion, terrifying power fluctuations emanating in all directions. This was clearly a scene that could only occur when two Essence Spirit Martial Grandmasters were in a standoff. Entering the mansion, passing through many courtyards, they indeed saw two old men currently facing each other, both having solemn expressions on their faces as they remained silent. Meanwhile, behind them, their respective supporters were currently in the midst of an argument. Could it be that you have all gone mad, jumping out at this time to drag the family head down? What exactly are your intentions? Those on the side of Yen Di glared furiously at those on the other side. The other side did not back down in the slightest. Words cannot be justified without proper justification. Yen Di's position as family head was not obtained through proper means in the first place. When the entire family migrated to the heaven domain that year, his parents both perished, with only him surviving. No one knows what exactly happened at that time. Now, with the letter that his father left for the family head, it has already been proven to be true. Yen Di is not a descendant of our Yen family at all. When his parents perished that year, who knows if it was his own doing, concealing his identity and plotting against our family head. The side on Yen Di's side was angered to the point of laughing. The family head being able to reach where he is today is all due to his own heaven-defying talent. In choosing him to succeed, the family head also saw his ability. Back when he entered Broad Creed Mountain, the family head's meteoric rise was not due to having borrowed much of our family head's strength. On the contrary, as the family head's position rose day by day, our family head also benefited greatly from it. All of you bear resentment in your hearts, probably because you resent the family head's strict rules, not giving you the chance to use your connections to intimidate others. Hearing this, the other party snorted coldly. Whether or not Yen Di is in the wrong first aside, the truth behind the deaths of his parents back then must be investigated. His origins must be investigated as well. A person of unknown origins becoming the head of a family is truly laughable. His son Yen Zhaoge is the same. His mother's identity is unknown. Who knows where she came from? Before he had finished, a figure flickered, appearing before him. It was precisely Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge smiled nonchalantly. "I am also very interested in the background of the person who urged you on." That person forcibly composed himself. "Yen Zhaoge, you've returned just in time. The family elders have something to ask you." Bang! The next moment, this person was sent flying backwards in a straight line. Yen Zhaoge dusted off his trousers. "Other than answering my questions, you do not have the right to say anything else." Chapter 270. As soon as Yen Zhaoge had appeared, the two old men had already discovered his presence. It was just that they were restraining each other, unable to divert their attention to other matters. When Yen Zhaoge had sent him flying with a single kick, that old man on the right finally could not hold it in any longer. "Yen Zhaoge, what status you have in Broad Creed Mountain is another matter altogether. Now that you still dare to be so impudent in the ancestral mansion, do you really think that there are no family laws that can punish you?" Yen Zhaoge looked calmly at this old man. "Yen Wendao, at the most critical moment for Broad Creed Mountain, and my father now, what attitude do you think I should have towards people like you who have rebelled against your superiors and plotted against us?" Hearing Yen Zhaoge directly call him by his name, fourth granduncle, Yen Wendao was greatly enraged. "Good brat!" He was, after all, an essence spirit realm martial grandmaster. When he was enraged this time, it really had the might of a landslide. As his quintessential essence circulated, rays of light seemed to transform into horned dragons that coiled around him. With a single stride, he was already before Yan Zhaoge, a palm striking downwards towards him. Beside him, a power of the same lineage surged. His third granduncle Yan Wenjin, who had been in a standoff with him earlier, flashed to Yan Zhaoge's side, raising his palm upwards, also accompanied by a horned dragon. Two Yan family longtime elders, essence spirit martial grandmasters, clashed head-on with their palms. Both of them were worried that they were in the ancestral mansion and didn't dare to unleash their full power. Thus, their fight seemed ordinary and uneventful. However, everyone present felt as if there was a strong light shining in front of them, and everything was white. There was a deafening roar in his ears, and he couldn't hear anything else. Some of the Yan family warriors with lower cultivations could not help but feel weak. Yan Wendao glared furiously at Yan Wenjin, just based on the fact that he, a mere grandson, dares to speak to this old man in this manner. This old man will be executing the family's laws today. Yan Di has no reason to protect him. Yan Wenjin's expression was calm. Old Four, I'm also very interested in which side is standing behind you. Sacred Sun Clan, Broad Creed Mountains, Elder Fong, the Lightning Domains, Zhao Region Yan family, and the Heavenly Thunder Hall, or Decimating Abyss. The two elders exchanged another move, and a light pattern lit up on their foreheads. The light pattern floated into the air and instantly expanded. The entire Yan family's ancestral home also began to shake. The white formation patterns were like dragons, roaring as they rose up and down. An enormous spirit formation that covered the entire Yan family's ancestral home was instantly formed. However, the circulation of the spiritual formation was clearly sluggish and unstable, as if it could be torn in half at any time. Yan Wendao and Yan Wenjin both glared at each other. As the two longtime elders of the Yan family, who were at the essence spirit martial grandmaster realm, the two of them usually jointly controlled the grand defensive formation of the Yan family ancestral mansion. At this moment, the battle just happened to be right between them, and the grand formation could not be put to use for the time being, instead becoming the focal point of the struggle between the two sides. Seeing that he was temporarily unable to do anything to Yan Wenjin, Yan Wendao's figure suddenly flashed once more, continuing to lunge towards Yan Zhaoge. His and Yan Wenjin's strengths were about the same. One wanted to kill, and the other wanted to protect, so the former undoubtedly had the upper hand. Brat, you have to pay the price for your arrogance. Yan Wendao roared coldly. Looking quietly at Yan Wendao, Yan Zhaoge suddenly laughed. Yan Wendao, you seem to have gotten something wrong. Saying thus, Yan Zhaoge lightly tapped his forehead. There, a flickering rune appeared as well. Just speaking of this place and time, if we are talking about the family's laws, I am the one. Accompanied by the rune lighting up on Yan Zhaoge's forehead, the grand formation of the ancestral home instantly shook. The next moment, Yan Wendao and Yan Wenjin discovered that the flickering rune on their foreheads had shockingly faded. Yan Wenjin was fine with it, but Yan Wendao's heart suddenly sunk. The family head, Yan Di, was the true controller of the Yan family ancestral mansion's grand formation. Yan Zhaoge, with Yan Di's help, clearly also possessed the authority to control the Yan family ancestral mansion's grand formation. Meanwhile, this youth's attainments in formations far surpassed these old fellas, even surpassing them essence spirit martial grandmasters. Smiling lightly, Yan Zhaoge extended his hands, palms facing downwards, spreading his fingers before abruptly pressing downwards. The ancestral mansion instantly reacted. The courtyard they were in was instantly filled with white radiance, numerous dragons of light shooting out from within, all lunging towards Yan Wendao. Helpless, Yan Wendao could only resist. However, Yan Wenjin behind him had already let out a long roar, her palms flying as she swiftly attacked. Faced with Yan Wenjin's pincer attack, as well as the ancestral home's grand formation, Yan Wendao was instantly unable to hold on. He shockingly discovered something under Yan Zhaoga's control. The grand formation of the Yan family ancestral mansion actually unleashed its peak power, not inferior in the slightest to the control of the Essence Spirit Martial Grandmasters. The power of the grand formation was even greater than that of him, Yan Wendao. Without Yan Wenjin's help, he would also be hard-pressed to resist, only being able to struggle for a period of time at most. Yan Zhaoga said mildly, laying down a trap to lure me over. The ambushers should have already appeared by now, right? Otherwise, the bait will be used up. Before his words had landed, a few black figures had already shot out from the crowd, lunging towards Yan Zhaoga together. So it's people of the decimating abyss. Yan Zhaoga's expression did not change as he extended his hands, palms facing each other, abruptly bringing them together. Accompanied by this palm strike of Yan Zhaoga's, the power of the Yan family's grand formation surged madly, numerous dragons of light congregating, forming a massive dragon head that overlooked the surrounding area. The dragon had opened its mouth, suddenly letting out a long roar that shocked the heavens, shaking the attackers to the point that they were all unable to stand stably, their bodies floating as though they were about to collapse from drunkenness. With a wave of Yan Zhaoga's hand, a short stone rod flew out, transforming into a massive pillar of the divine palace that pressured downwards, suppressing the enemies. Beside him, Ahu laughed savagely as he rushed out, like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, slaughtering the enemies. As someone attacked from behind, the immortal crane wings on Yan Zhaoga's body expanded mightily, feathers shooting out in all directions like a torrential storm. Those suppressed by the grand formation of the Yan family ancestral mansion were all on Yan Wendao's side. Yan Zhaoga's seventh granduncle. Yan He and the others were not affected, although seeing Yan Zhaoga quell the internal chaos like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, some of the Yan family martial practitioners still felt a little uncomfortable within their hearts. However, having also been moved by Yan Zhaoga's thunderous methods of distinguishing between friend and foe, they immediately launched attacks together. Other powers aside, everyone from the decimating abyss had the right to exterminate them. Towards those of the decimating abyss, they mainly focused on capturing those of their own clan, showing no mercy at all towards those decimating abyss martial practitioners who intended to attack Yan Zhaoga. The chaotic situation with Yan Zhaoga looked like it was about to be quelled very quickly. However, the moods of everyone present could not relax at all. After all, this was internal strife within the Yan family, not something that was all that glorious. After killing an opponent, Yan He retreated to Yan Zhaoga's side, asking in a low tone, "Those decimating abyss martial practitioners who snuck in are fine, but what about fourth uncle and the others? Let's first capture and lock them up before talking." Yan Zhaoga swiveled his head to look in the direction of Yan Wendao. Just having shifted his gaze, Yan Zhaoga suddenly felt a chill envelop him. From the corner of his eye, he saw Yan He currently smiling coldly at him, a strange box opening within his hands, from within emanating waves of cold qi. Swept by the cold qi, Yan Zhaoga felt a piercing pain in his right eye, the purple light of thunder flickering within. However, it seemed to have been temporarily paralyzed, coming to a momentary halt. "Yan Zhaoga, if we talk about the family's laws, you are also not fit to talk about them." Yan He smiled coldly, the sword within his hand stabbing viciously towards Yan Zhaoga, who was rather far away, not being able to arrive in time. Swept by the cold qi, Yan Zhaoga was unable to even wield his golden talisman body, Looking like he was about to die under Yan He's sword, Yen Zhaoge, however, smiled slightly. Here and now, of all the people here, I am the law. Saying thus, Yen Zhaoge flicked his palm, mightily slamming it down towards the top of Yen He's head. To be continued.